Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Gary.
And I'm Bill. Welcome to our home on Nantucket. Come on in.
Hi, Homeworthy. Welcome to Nantucket. I'm Kristin Paton, and I'm looking forward to sharing my home with you. Come on in.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Meg. Welcome to our Nantucket beach house. Come on in, let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Meg Young. I am the founder of Cailíní Coastal, which is a destination for luxury coastal-inspired home decor and furnishings. Welcome to my home here on Nantucket. So for years, my husband and I have been coming to Nantucket with our 2 daughters and our extended family. And the last couple of years, I was sort of egging him on, we should start looking for a home on Nantucket. So we came back in September and it was a nor'easter. So we were staying at a hotel with our daughters and really stuck in the hotel room. And our realtor said, hey, there's a couple of homes on the market that just came on. Do you want to go look? And we thought, well, there's really nothing else to do. So sure, let's look at some homes. And this home was one of the homes. And we pulled into the driveway, this long driveway, and we were just blown away by how beautiful the property was and the privacy. And there was such a warmth to this home, even on the cloudiest, rainiest, kind of ickiest day on the island. And I think there was a little bit of magic in the air that my husband was aligned with me. You know, let's put in an offer and see what happens. And the stars aligned and the offer was accepted. And a week later, we were up here for the inspection. So I really do feel, as cliche as it sounds, that this home was meant to be ours. So the home was really a blank canvas when we bought it. The former owner was a bachelor, and no offense to the bachelors out there, but it needed a lot of design, I would say, and color. For me, I saw the opportunity just to warm it up, to add some personality and make it feel like an inviting family home. Welcome to our entryway. When we purchased the home, this space was white walls. It had this beautiful shiplap. This over here was actually a closet, and it was, you know, a pretty coastal space, but it needed some personality. I partnered with a dear friend of mine and designer, Lynn Morgan Design out of Connecticut. She helped us when we were building our home in Connecticut, and I had her partner again on this home, and she brought so many creative ideas in designing this space. I always say I have a very clear sense of my style, but I design as a consumer designs, and sometimes you need that next level of creativity. And she had the brilliant idea to paint these floors. So at first I was a little nervous because it is a space that has a lot of traffic, but it really has transformed the entire look of this entryway. And when you walk in, it is just such a statement. They have a protective coating on top of them to keep them in tip-top shape. But I just think that they're so much fun, and it's nothing I would have ever thought of on my own. And then we really wanted to have an area where you could sit down, take off your shoes. We sort of were missing a mudroom in this home. And so we decided to turn the coat closet into a seating area with these pull-out drawers where we can tuck away flip-flops and sneakers and just keep it a little bit more organized and tidy. Although I will tell you, no one actually uses those drawers except for me. Drives me nuts, but we always have a pile of shoes when we're hosting, although I do feel like that is sort of the look and the feel of a beach house. And then we did this custom seat here. I love the detail. Again, this is a Lynn Morgan design detail of this striped pipe trim. Some fun pillows that are Cailíní Coastal that we actually designed for this home. The ACK pillow we created, and it recently launched for this house, I wanted something that said ACK on it, and we did this darling little hook pillow that greets all of our guests the second you walk in the door. Then we have lots of nautical touches throughout. I mean, again, we really leaned into making this a coastal home, and it was so fun to do that. So we have these beautiful woven sconces with the blue and white shade for a little pop-up pattern. And then in the entry, I have a couple of things on the wall that are very special. So these pieces, fun story behind them, I purchased from an antique store, of course thinking, buying them from an antique store, that they were in fact antiques. And when I started showing this home on our Instagram account, somebody messaged me and said, "I'm so glad that you found and loved my art." And I told this person, "Oh no, they're vintage pieces," and actually found out that they were not. So it is an artist who takes vintage frames and then she draws this folk art that is inspired by vintage pieces of art. At first I was almost disappointed because they felt maybe less special. I truly thought that I was telling everyone, these are from the 1800s. They're not. The frames could be. But then as a business owner, I was very excited because now we're working on a collection exclusively for Cailíní Coastal with some of this incredible art. So I just love these pieces. It's a small wall, but I think hanging art, I love art. I think it really can transform a space, and just a little pop here just brings this whole little vignette to life. And then I wanted to introduce you to Shelly, our whale. So you will see in this home, Shelly is the first of many things I'm going to show you that are created by local Nantucket artists and artisans. And Shelly is carved of reclaimed wood and hand painted here on the island of Nantucket. And I think she is just so fitting, again, when you walk in the door to see this whale, because Nantucket has a very rich history in whaling, and it really is a symbol of Nantucket. I think she is just adorable. And sometimes she's Pearl. The kids change her name. We had a big debate, but recently she's Shelly. So Shelly is a favorite in the entryway. And then we get so many questions about our door color. So I'm gonna show you this. We repainted the door and lacquered it. This is Benjamin Moore old blue jeans, and it was a very bright blue. So the first thing we did to the house was paint the door. And it's a really beautiful coastal blue gray, and then we added a whale tail door knocker, and I just love how it turned out. The last thing I want to show you in the entry is the light fixture. So this piece is actually the piece we waited for the longest. It had a 6-month lead time, which seems bananas, but it is a custom light fixture from Cailíní Company. And I just thought the wave design was so fun and playful, and it made such an impact in this space, and I think it really brought it all together. So now we're going to move into the living room. So the living space is drenched in sun. Thankfully, the sun has come out for us today, so you can experience it firsthand. And we rarely turn the lights on in this house because there is just so much natural sunlight that comes through, which feels just so appropriate for a beach home. And in designing this space, we went what to me feels like a quintessential beach house. We put white slip-covered sofas, and clearly I have a dog, George, and I have 2 kids. And so it was a little intimidating to have white slip-covered sofas, but this is our Molly sofa that we actually just launched, and it is a durable cotton fabric that can be machine washed. And so that was essential to me. I have taken them off already a couple of times to throw them in the wash to keep them clean. And it can be a little annoying to get them back on and off. But for me, having that white slip-covered sofa was a must-have. And I absolutely love the look of them, even if it requires a little bit more care than a darker color. I think they're just perfect in this space. And with durability, again, this is a high traffic area. This is the main space where we spend time when we're indoors. So this is our beautiful crew stripe rug. And this is an indoor-outdoor rug, highly, highly durable. We have already spilt red wine on this space. George has come in after digging with muddy paws, and it's really easy to clean. And so that was, again, an essential. I think it's so important, especially at a house by the beach where people are coming in from the outside pretty regularly, to have things that are durable, but I don't think you have to sacrifice the beauty of the pieces. So finding things, and that's something I love to source, that are beautiful and elevated, but also durable, are really key. So these chairs, these fun swivel chairs, are a Lynn Morgan, the designer I worked with, touch. This is where I say the partnership really was a perfect blend. You know, I selected the white slip-covered sofas, and Lynn said, okay, Meg, we need to have a little more fun in this space. So she found this quadrille fabric, and then we had these custom upholstered swivel chairs. They're really comfortable, and they do add a little bit of, I would say, you know, more high design look to the space, and it's something I would not have selected on my own. I probably would have just done more white, which is why I'm not a designer. In this space, I also want to show a few accessories because I just love accessories. I love having fresh florals, but the reality is this is a home we're not in year round, and oftentimes we're here for a weekend or a short trip. And I love walking in the door and seeing something that looks like I have beautiful fresh florals. So these are actually artificial snowball hydrangeas that we sell, and it's one of our best-selling pieces because it's such a statement, but it's so realistic and it's very low maintenance. So again, it's a wonderful piece to have when you walk in the door that gives you that impact without having to actually go to the store and buy fresh flowers. And then over here on our sofa, I want to show another Nantucket artisan piece. So this beautiful throw is from Nantucket Looms, which is a store on the island, and they have been looming throws for over 50 years on the island. They're absolutely spectacular. And once we bought our home here, I immediately went and purchased one for our homes. These are our whale baskets. I have two more, which I will show you, but they come as a set of 3 and they're nested. And this is another design we created for this house. I wanted storage that was something I could throw blankets in or sunscreen. And we made these cute little wicker whale baskets. And I keep him right over here by our fire, and he stores our throws. And I just think, again, it's another really whimsical, fun detail to have in this space. Over here, we have this beautiful blue console that is actually a custom piece we sell, and we did the color to match our front door. So this is Benjamin Moore old blue jeans, and another great styling opportunity with the multiple shelves. I have a mix of new pieces as well as some vintage finds in here, and I just really always welcome, because we don't have a lot of spaces, when I have these moments to have fun with those decor and accessories. And then this piece is another Nantucket artist and a dear friend of mine, Zofia Crosby, and she is an islander and photographer. And we've been selling her Nantucket photography since we launched the business 5 years ago. But this is actually of our beach, Surfside Beach, just down the road. And I thought it was just perfect in this space, and the colors, I love that there's some green in there, and just tied back to the local side of where we are and our now very special local beach. And then over here, this is one of our Cailíní pieces of art. These are actual vintage tennis rackets that have been suspended on white linen, and then we custom frame them so no two are alike. I love this piece. I actually don't play tennis. I've never even held a racket. And I joke that I'm the only woman in Connecticut that doesn't play tennis. But it's true, but I do think it ties in, especially in Nantucket too. It's a very popular summer sport. And I love, again, a little vintage touch in this very new and modern space. Our dining room is completely covered in shiplap. There's so much shiplap in this house, which I love. I actually find it funny because people sometimes say shiplap is a trend, and maybe in a modern farmhouse style it is, but in coastal, it's so classic. I mean, the homes in town that are hundreds of years old have shiplap, so I just think it's really classic. And this home was 7 years old when we purchased it, and I love an old home. My husband does not share the same, I think, appreciation for charm and character of older homes. So I actually loved it that this home had so much shiplap, and it felt like a little bit of a nod to the more historic homes. But it has these great vaulted ceilings, and it makes the space feel really open. We added our Rockport chandelier, which is wrapped in rope with the nautical knot in the middle, and then some beautiful custom shades to add a little bit of color. And these custom sconces actually pair with our kitchen pendants, which I'll show you. But these are made on Cape Cod by a local company, and they're so beautiful and special, and I just love the nautical look to them. I want to show you these chairs because these are one of the few things in the house that I don't sell that's also not custom. And I think it's a wonderful example of you don't always have to spend a lot to get a great look. These are IKEA chairs, and I wanted something that could handle a little bit of wear and tear, and I needed 8 of them. So I bought these $99 IKEA chairs, and I had them sprayed in Benjamin Moore denim wash. And then I just had a durable seat cushion, but not expensive fabric, put on them. And it totally changed the look of the chair. And I think we get more questions about these chairs than anything else, which cracks me up because they're quite inexpensive. And I appreciate that they're not too precious, because if in a few years they get trashed and it's time for something new, I won't feel heartbroken. But they actually turned out even better than I expected. And these chairs at the end are actually vintage chairs that I'm still waiting on the cushion for, but they were black, and I found a pair of them and we had them painted white. So I think that's fun when you can take a piece and actually paint it, and it really can completely transform the look of it. On our table, we have these beautiful shell hurricanes that I love to move from the inside to the outside when we're dining. And I think candlelight is so romantic, and I love shells. I have them all over the home. I just think they're so elegant. And again, the opportunity to go a little wild with shells here was really fun, because back in Connecticut, sometimes it just feels very out of place. Another very special piece of art, and I love that I can go through this home and share so many incredible artists with you, because I'm all about supporting other artists and small businesses. This is a dear friend of mine, Michelle Brunner Art, and she has been creating art for Cailíní Coastal for years. And I had commissioned, this is sort of her signature look, hydrangeas and sailboats, a special piece for our home, and it is so perfect in this space. If you're familiar with Nantucket, you might recognize this. This is actually Brant Point Lighthouse. So it's not a literal scene of Brant Point Lighthouse, but she essentially took the lighthouse and placed it into one of her beautiful scenes. And I think it's just really special to have one of her pieces in my home and have the tie back to Nantucket. So this home has been so special to me to design, because I absolutely love coastal interiors. I mean, I started an entire business selling pieces for your home that are designed specifically for people who love the coastal aesthetic. And being a true beach house just down the road from the beach, we were able to really lean into that. I live during the year in Connecticut. While it's by the coast, it can sometimes feel very, not really the place where I can add a lot of shells without it feeling disconnected. And this home, I felt like I could lean into some of those more literal coastal themes, whether it's shells or the nautical theme. And I think our home is just truly a classic New England coastal home. And now we're gonna go into our laundry room, which I'm sure is a space most people aren't showing on their Homeworthy tours, but this is a pretty fun space, so I did want to show you. We decided to paint this floor, and we did this blue, white, and green runner style floor painting, and we incorporated green throughout the space. We painted the cabinetry, which was all white, and then we added these really fun cafe curtains that have sort of a wave design with the blue, green, and white. And then these are the other two whale baskets that are part of the set. And we use the little one to store our sunscreen. And I just think it's very sweet on the counter. And then Nantucket Bike Baskets is another female founded business I love to support. We have their baskets on our bike, but I also mounted a couple of them and thought they looked really sweet on the wall. And we use them to store George's toys. So sometimes he comes to the laundry room and he sits right here barking, and our guests are always like, what is wrong with that dog? But it's because his toys are in here and he knows that. And then I have a fun piece of gray Malin art on the wall. This is from his Nantucket collection, and it just tied in so well with the colors. I actually had this piece in our home in Connecticut and brought it up because I thought it would be perfect in this space. So the kitchen was a space that we didn't change too much to, but the changes we made a big impact. At some point we might renovate this kitchen, but it wasn't something we wanted to invest in now. So we made a couple of simple changes, and one of the biggest changes was the light fixtures. These beautiful pendants that are made by the same company that made the sconces I showed you are custom pieces and so special. I loved the pop of blue and the bits of brass, and they really do feel so nautical. There were some really modern light fixtures in here before, and truly, as soon as these came in, it immediately transformed the space. So they are one of my favorite parts of the kitchen. We added some color with patterns. So we did a bar stool with a custom cushion with a blue and white stripe that ties to the banquette I'll show you shortly. And then we did some beautiful custom window treatments. These are from Tillet, and they have blue with little pops of green. Again, color in just little spaces really added so much. So they transformed this space, as silly as it sounds because it's so small, but it really did make an impact. And then behind me, we have some shelves where I have some vintage vessels. This is actually a bestseller for us. This is an oyster plate that's made by an artist in the South, and just really fun and interesting. And then above the hood, we have a fantastic piece of art that is sort of this nautical folk art that I just really felt added so much character and personality to the space. Again, we have these huge vaulted ceilings, and this space is not big, but these vaulted ceilings on the first floor really just make it feel so much more open and airy and even bigger than it is. So the kitchen is a good size, but it feels a lot larger than it actually is. Over here, I call this our breakfast and game table. And this was a little bit of an awkward space. When we saw it, there were just two club chairs and a little table in the middle, and they felt very out of place. And we decided to create a little nook where our family of 4 could sit and have breakfast, or we could play games at night if we didn't want to sit at the dining table. And this beautiful banquette is in this striped fabric, is such a perfect piece. I love a banquette. I love a built-in banquette, and this one is not built in, but it gives that same look. It's very sort of inviting and cozy. And then we put in these custom cafe curtains around as well, which was just a fun, different window treatment from a traditional Roman shade. And then these plates on the wall are very special to me. So these are handmade in France for Cailíní Coastal. I partnered with the oldest earthenware artist in France to create these ship plates for us. And they're all handmade. You can eat off of them as well. But I just thought they were so beautiful, styled as decor on the wall, and the 3 different designs. I just love this nook. So I've set up our Scrabble board. I mean, truly, we even sell the Scrabble board. How silly is that? But it's like a coastal color palette and really fun. But we love to play Scrabble at night. We're not always doing it with such beautiful flowers beside it, but it's just a cozy nook and a great place to enjoy a cup of coffee too if I can't be sitting outside, if it's like a rainy day. And now I'm going to bring you to our backyard. George, come on. George is my shadow. He loves to go wherever we go. So the backyard was part of the appeal to the home. We saw it in September of last year, and I'll show you shortly. All of the limelight hydrangeas were fully bloomed and starting to antique, and it is just so magical and special. And we added 2 seating areas. So when we purchased the home, the former owner had 1 larger dining table here. It felt really crammed, and we wanted to create 2 different dining spaces. One that's a little bit more casual, where we could enjoy family meals and morning coffee. So I wake up very early. I love to sit out here with my laptop and coffee, and George, of course, by my side, and enjoy morning coffees and peaceful, quiet moments. And then we created a more formal dining area down here. And it is a beach house, and I say formal knowing that it really never is that formal. But I did create a more formal setting for you today. I am going to use this opportunity to host a couple girlfriends for lunch. And this is the table setting that I would create that is, you know, still casual. We have no table linens to make it too formal, but some beautiful pieces. We have these beautiful plates that are handmade in France, and they have kind of a basket weave texture to them, which always reminds me of Nantucket and Nantucket baskets. And then the florals were created by a lovely local, Debbie Lilly, who does event design and floral design. So she created these beautiful florals for me. And it is a miracle that the tapers are still standing, because we have typical gusty Nantucket wind today. So we'll pray that they don't crack in half at some point. And then over here is an area where we love to lounge by the pool. I had hoped we would have the umbrellas up for you, because it really creates such an amazing look. Every time our guests come to the house, I love to set these chaise lounges. I put the pillows out, I put the umbrellas up. I just like to create a vibe that makes you feel almost like you're walking into a resort. And it's funny, all of our guests notice that. I think sometimes it's those little details that really make a home feel special, and your guests feel like they're really escaping. And we love to share that escape and our retreat with our guests. Okay, so I can't walk any further without talking about this wall of hydrangeas behind me. As I mentioned, the property really sold us on this home, and these limelights did not disappoint. This is just true magic to me. I think hydrangeas like this symbolize Nantucket. I mean, where else in the world can you get this? I call this my wall of hydrangeas, and I appreciate them every single day. And I can't wait till they start antiquing, and it will bring us right through fall and just such tremendous beauty. So now we are going to go to the pool house. One of my favorite things about living at the beach, and I've always loved this since I was a kid, is an outdoor shower. I actually might enjoy it more than my kids. I just think it's such a thrill. And I loved when we saw this house that it had an outdoor shower, and just the little details. The little whale hook here I thought was absolutely darling. And I think after a day in the sun, it's just so wonderful to jump in an outdoor shower and look up and see blue sky and feel the wind in the air. Hokey as it sounds, I love it. So this is a seating area that we created. The former owner actually had a fire pit here, which didn't really work for us. I feel like I've heard from friends they've never really used their fire pits. And I wanted to just create a beautiful seating area. Having the business that I have, I'm always thinking of ways I can photograph the products that we sell and creating just beautiful vignettes. And when you enter the backyard and you see this beautiful, the architecture of the pool house with the pergola, I thought having two gorgeous sofas flanked by blue and white planters with some florals would be really just lovely to see and bring the eye down. So as you probably can tell, I have a thing for blue, and this is why I'm not a designer, because it's not particularly unique. And but I love it, and I love to pop some blue in anywhere. So I really loved these beautiful garden stools that are at the end of the sofas, and you can place drinks there. But I just love the way they look when you look out and see this whole vignette. And again, it takes time for things to grow in a garden, but we did plant climbing roses. So after a couple of years, you might have to come back and visit, because the idea is they will start to climb over this trellis. And to me, hydrangeas and roses, climbing roses in particular, are just so quintessential Nantucket. So I look forward to seeing how everything blooms and evolves in the years to come. Okay, now I'm going to bring you into our pool house. So Lynn Morgan, the designer we worked with on this home, pushed me in here a little bit. She said, Meg, you need something other than blue. So we added just subtle pops of yellow in this space, which is very playful and fun. So I love to tell you what these spaces looked like before we moved in. So this was the bachelor's gym, of course, naturally looking out over the pool while like pumping iron. And we have turned this into really a space that you can use as a guest. We have a queen size bed in the loft, and then of course this lounge area. So we've got a little kitchenette and then a full bathroom as well. And we have had guests sleep here, but also we can use this space just on a beautiful day, open the French doors if you want to just step out of the sun and relax and cool down, but still feel like you're a part of this beautiful yard. This is a great place to do that. I am a huge fan of Gray Malin, and I have his art throughout our home, but in the pool house, I wanted to add some fun pieces. So we have pieces from his Nantucket collection. I love this one in, of course, the blue frame. And I loved that in this piece of art, there's that same wood whale hook on their garage that we have on our pool house. And then over here, we have some of his art. It's the Aperol Spritz and the water. And I believe these are Hinkley's, and you can see Great Point Lighthouse in the background. And I just thought these were so fun in a pool house, and obviously an Aperol Spritz on the island is always a good idea. So we're at the front of our house, and I want to show you something that's really special, which might surprise you, but it is this spectacular tree. I'm embarrassed to say I don't actually know what type of tree it is, but I'm going to invite you to come in under this majestic canopy. And when we saw this house, the tree was part of what made the property feel so special. So we've learned from neighbors who've lived here for a while that this tree is in fact very old. And when the land was sold, that this tree was one of the trees on the property that was not allowed to be touched. So from the moment our girls came to the home, they were climbing in the trunk and just seeking shade under the tree. And I thought it would be most fitting to put in some tree swings. So we put in 2 tree swings for each of my daughters, and I come out here sometimes myself and swing under the tree. So I started Cailíní Coastal 5 years ago from my garage. We were living in Manhattan Beach, California at the time. And I have long been a lover of the beach. My family grew up in New York and New Jersey, and we spent time in the Hamptons, and then later years in New Jersey. My family actually bought a home down the shore in New Jersey. And that home to me was such an amazing escape. It was a place of refuge during some difficult times in my life, and a place where I instantly just felt peaceful and joyful. And I always used to say that when we went onto the island in New Jersey, I would leave all my worries behind. And that sentiment has really stayed with me. And through owning Cailíní Coastal, I know so many people share that belief of being by the water is just such a powerful healing thing. And I wanted to offer a destination where people could create that same sense, whether or not they actually lived by the coast in their own home. And even in the dead of winter, if you have a home that exudes that essence of the sea, whether it's via textures or colors, it really has such an impact on your mood. And I saw an opportunity in the marketplace. I was at the time actually working in the PR industry in beauty. And when I went to furnish our first home that we bought in Los Angeles, I was busy working. I had 2 back-to-back babies, and I was shopping online, and I realized that there weren't a lot of places that offered this really curated experience for luxury quality coastal home. And coastal can skew a bit kitschy, and there's less places that really offer this elevated coastal look. And I wanted something that other people didn't have, because it was an industry that was really dominated by just a couple of mainstream brands. And I looked at the beauty industry that was so oversaturated, and I thought, gosh, there has to be something else, because I don't want the same pieces of furniture or the same wallpaper or throw pillows that everyone who likes this aesthetic has in their home. And that was really the catalyst behind Cailíní Coastal. I'm now going to take you into our office. Come on in. This was another space that was just white everywhere. And in this space, we wanted to create a little bit of a moodier vibe. So we went with this really rich blue. This is Downpour Blue by Benjamin Moore. And we painted the cabinetry and then all of the shiplap on the walls. And then we added so many fun nautical maritime accessories in this space. This is another piece of art from the artist I mentioned in our entryway that I also thought was old, and in fact is not, but I just think the art is so well suited for this house. And then the bookshelves have a lot of really fun accessories and objects. There's a few great sources on the island for shopping vintage. A hospital thrift store and the Bon Ton are 2 of my favorites, and lots of these books are vintage books. I thought this was really fun. The ship in the bottle, some brass accessories as well, like the sailboats and light ship Nantucket baskets, and just a lot of fun little accessories. I love decor. I love accessories. It's one of the things I enjoy sourcing and shopping most for my business. So having a moment like this with a lot of shelf space where I could style and play in a more literal coastal way was really fun. So before we get to the bedroom, I want to stop at our powder bath, which is this teeny tiny bathroom behind a pocket door, but I want to show you the wallpaper and the art. So the wallpaper is our Endless Summer wallpaper. It's actually on a paper weave, so it's a textured ground. And given that Nantucket is the land of hydrangea, as I like to say, I thought this was the perfect wallpaper to have in our powder bathroom. Just so beautiful and symbolic for Nantucket. And then the art hanging on the wall is another custom piece from Latori Studio, who is an artist in South Florida. And she paints these incredible maps. This was her first ever Nantucket map that she painted for us. And it has some of our favorite Nantucket landmarks. And you'll see right here in the center of the art is our home. And that is a really special piece for us. And now we can go into the primary bedroom. So come on in. This is another space that has these high vaulted ceilings, and thankfully the sun has come out for us today so you can actually see what I'm talking about when I say that this is a sun-drenched space. It is so calming. I always talk about the feeling that being by the coast gives me, that sense of peace and joy, and this bedroom really kind of encapsulates that. So we have these soft blue tones and lots of white, and I love a white bed. I think there's nothing better than a beautiful white bed. There's something so inviting about it. It always reminds me of staying at, a beautiful hotel where you just want to dive in. And our bed is actually, I don't know how, because a lot of the pieces are the same, but our bed here is just so comfortable. It's easy to get up in the morning when you wake up on Nantucket, but it is a very wonderful sleeping experience in this little bedroom retreat. We have beautiful pillows by John Rob Shaw, and they add a little bit of pop of color to the otherwise white bed. And then the bed itself was a custom piece we did with Lynn Morgan, a custom upholstered bed. And the window treatments are Schumacher. I also love a stripe. There are some things that just I can't get enough of: stripes, shells, blue, and these window treatments I think are beautiful between the Romans and the coordinating drapes. They just add such a perfect coastal touch. This is another custom piece of art, and this is actually very special to me. So this was based on a photo that was taken here last summer on Nantucket by Zofia Crosby, who often takes always I should say, takes our family photos. And it was a very odd moment. I actually received a call and got some, at the time, terrifying health news in the middle of this family photo shoot. Thank God everything is okay. But I asked Sophia to not have my face in any of the photos because I was trying to hold it together for my kids. And this is one of the photos she took. And a few weeks later, we found out everything was okay. But it was just such a reminder that life is so fragile and things can change in an instant. And what is really most important. Ironically, a few weeks later, we actually came up to Nantucket and bought our home. And I don't think if that incident happened, we actually would have bought our home on Nantucket. And it was a bit of this, enjoy life and create memories together. And so I had this artist in San Diego, Jamie McCarrier, who I've worked with for many years, paint this for me. And it hangs in our room as just a moment and reminder when I wake up every single day to be grateful for my family, for my health, for everything we have. And it's really a very special personal piece in our home. And I want to show you behind the French doors. One of the loveliest things about this room is when you wake up in the morning and pull open the drapes and you just see outside to this beautiful scene. It's pretty magical and special. And I feel like every day I wake up in this space and I have those pinch me feelings like I'm on vacation, and I definitely very much appreciate it. So in addition to having no window treatments in this home, there were very few rugs or carpets, and we decided to install a runner up the stairs, and this beautiful blue, this is our Mia Comet rug, and we did a custom runner. It is indoor outdoors, so it is highly durable, which was necessary. And it made such a difference in just the look and feel of the staircase. We also painted this banister, which was a very dark brown, a white, and lacquered it. And I didn't love this banister. It was sort of an odd look, and without having to rip the whole thing out, which would have been a much bigger investment, just painting it made such a difference. So small things, again, that really transformed the space. And I was actually very inspired by a nautical gallery wall I saw somewhere. I can't even remember whether it was Instagram or Pinterest or a coffee table book. And I wanted to create this nautical gallery wall going up the staircase. So it's still very much a work in progress. We haven't even lived in this home for a year, but it wraps up and it's so fun. So there are pieces in here like these two that are antiques, and a lot of them aren't antiques, but in going through the process, it also inspired a design idea to design some art that looked old that wasn't, for customers who wanted that look but didn't have the access to great places to source vintage and antiques, or the bandwidth, because it quite honestly takes a lot of time to source. So some of these pieces that I'm showing are actually Cailíní Coastal designs that we framed in these old inspired frames, and we did a coating to these prints to give them texture and more of a worn look to them. So they look old, but they are actually, all of these are new custom pieces that you can order. So we have them mixed in. I wanted to style them so you almost couldn't even tell. And a few more of them over here. And then it just wraps up the staircase. And most of them are ships, but we have some whales and then a few other accessories, or I should say accessory like the oyster plate and our rope mirror and a ship dish. So anything that inspires me that I find I love. This piece is made of shell, actually by another artist on Nantucket who is so talented. And a lot of these vintage finds are from a company called Found out of Charleston. And the founder of that, Kristin, is fantastic. I never went in person. I just messaged her and told her what I was looking for. And she had so many incredible pieces. So if you're inspired to create this yourself, I highly recommend checking out Found. Okay, so now we're going to go into another one of my favorite spaces, which is the bunk room. Once again, the bunk room was a completely blank canvas. Everything was white. There were no window treatments. There was no wallpaper. It was just, a room with tremendous potential. And so we actually painted this the same blue that we painted our office. So this is Benjamin Moore Downpour Blue, which is a really great, rich nautical blue. And we painted the windows, which I think adds so much, just sort of character to the space. We did some custom window treatments with this really fun pattern border. And then the wallpaper is our Bristol stripe wallpaper. And this is actually inspired by a tiny piece of fabric. It was like a ticking stripe fabric that I found at a flea market in France. And we kind of blew it up and made this really fun coastal stripe. And I just think it looked so perfect in this space. We get asked constantly about the bedding on the beds. The quilt and sheets are John Robshaw, and the pillows are Cailíní. This is our swell pillow, and this is sold out so many times. We launched it this summer, and it's just a really fun, whimsical pillow with the big waves. And then we've got our crab pillow and lobster pillow on each of the beds. I loved the pop of red in here. And then this is some more Cailíní art. These are our modern ship prints, and all 4 of them are different, but I think it was just a perfect finishing touch for this great nautical bunk space. And then outside of the bunk room is a very cute nautical bathroom. This has our Huntington Wave wallpaper, and this wallpaper actually is, to me, always reminded me of a whale's tail, but it's a really fun kind of abstract design. And then we paired it with our anchorage mirror, which looks like a porthole, and again, just tied, I think, perfectly to the more literal nautical bunk room. This home has 7 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. So it's a 4,000 square foot, maybe slightly larger home. So I think of it as a true beach house to have that many bedrooms in that square footage, because it's with this idea and assumption that you're hosting a lot of guests and you're probably not spending too much time inside your home. You're spending time at the beach, you're spending time outside in the pool. And so most of the bedrooms are en suite. The bunk room is the only room that is not. I'm going to show you my oldest daughter's room, which is a room I could only have dreamed of having as a child. But it is a pretty special room. This room is, again, huge high ceilings. It feels much bigger and grander than it is. And we did decorative painting on the wall. I can't take credit for some of these things, so I want to give credit where credit is due. And this is designer Lynn Morgan. She said, Meg, let's paint a stripe on the wall. And I thought that is such a fun idea. And we did this blue, white, and then this light green stripe. And I think it turned out so fantastic. Another custom bed we did with this wavy scallop pattern, and it's this pretty kind of aqua green with this blue piping, which is really special. And then another beautiful white bed, because I just think they're so dreamy and effortless. I would say I'm actually probably more of a minimalist. Like, this room is so simple. My eldest daughter has inherited my like type A, very neat. So her room actually looks like this most of the time. She doesn't keep things on her bedside tables. She tucks things away. And I just think sometimes there's such beauty in simplicity, and it doesn't have to be a lot of stuff. So I love that about this space. I have to show you these bedside tables. So we unfortunately don't sell these anymore, but we did. And they are absolutely magnificent for a shell-obsessed person like myself. They are encrusted in natural white shells. And then they have this handle that looks, it's not real coral, but it's probably a resin and a faux coral handle. And they're just magnificent. I always look at this, and as a business owner, I think, how in the world do we ship this? The fact that this came from the Philippines, where they do the most beautiful shell work, and arrived here and moved up to Nantucket is wild. But they're truly works of art. And yes, and I put these beautiful works of art in my daughter's room, which feels very high risk, but she is very neat. And then over here, I want to show you a very simple but fun piece of art that pops, this Nantucket print that I found in town. Just again, where I can put a nod to Nantucket, I like to sneak it in. This is a vintage piece of art that I found, and as I've said, I've incorporated a lot of vintage and antique pieces, mostly through decor and art, and I just thought that this was a very fun piece. And then over my daughter's bed, we actually have a modern day version of this Shell Studies print. And then this is her bathroom. All of the bathrooms were white. We added wallpaper. We changed out the vanity in here and the mirror. They were the sort of built-in mirrors, medicine cabinets. And it's pretty incredible what just changing a mirror, a light fixture, And even if you don't change the vanity, just that alone can really, make a bathroom feel much more updated and give it more of a designer look. Somebody actually just said to me this weekend that Nantucket is a state of mind, and it really stuck with me. I go always back to this feeling. I think that being by the coast has been, since I was young, such a powerful thing for me because of how it makes me feel. And Nantucket completely has that impact on me. It's so beautiful. I mean, Nantucket obviously is a destination for people all around the world, and it's that for a reason. I think it's incredibly charming and unique, and with tremendous rich history, the cobblestone streets, the abundant fluffy hydrangea hedges, the most pristine beaches. It's really magnificent. The landscape is just truly magnificent. I think what else I love about Nantucket that was a bit of a magical surprise once we bought the home here is the community. The year-rounders and the people who spend their summers here are some of the kindest, warmest people I've met. And we have felt such an embrace since we bought our home here in November, from neighbors, from people I've been connected to. And it's really incredible. I think beyond just the superficiality of it's a beautiful place that people love to see, the restaurants are great, the shopping is great. I've been sort of most inspired by the people. There are so many incredible people. There are so many artisans and just good people on the island. And I think what lured us was really the beauty. And I think what's going to make this a home that we have for many, many decades to come is the incredible community. Home to me is the most important thing. It is definitely the people. The last couple of days I've actually been here with some dear girlfriends who visited. My husband and kids have been elsewhere, and last night I spent my time alone with George, my doodle, and as much as I love this home, it didn't feel the same with them. So I think it's about the people, but that those memories you create. I love being home. I am such a homebody. There's nowhere I'd rather be at the end of the day than in our home with our family and with friends, and having a home that is a beautiful one that makes you feel good and calm and joyful is an extra special one. Thank you so much for visiting Homeworthy. We had so much fun. I've got to go pick up my kids, but we'll see you later.
Today on Homeworthy, we're bringing you to the idyllic island of Nantucket for a look inside interior designer Kristin Paton's beautifully restored 1700s home. 5 sea captains and their families have called the shingled cottage home over the past 200 years, and as its new steward, Kristin was determined to celebrate its long-standing heritage. Her thoughtful redesign honors the home's rich maritime history with repurposed materials, a stunning whaling mural wrapping the central chimney, and a decor that nods to the home's seafaring roots. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi, Homeworthy. Welcome to Nantucket. I'm Kristin Paton, and I'm looking forward to sharing my home with you. Come on in. This home was built in 1760. It has seen 5 sea captains live here. This is the original entranceway and the original staircase to the home. You're also looking at wide plank floors that are all original to the home. They would have been in the pumpkin pine orange color that is typical, but the floors were in really bad shape, so we actually had to remove all the pumpkin pine and brought it back to the natural wood. This is actually a really important part of the house. This is the mast of the fireplace that hosted 5 fireplaces in this house, and it basically is what keeps the structure up. So this holds everything up. And right now we have this beautiful grass cloth from Nantucket artist Audrey Stark. She's a designer herself and a wonderful artist. And instead of trying to hide the mast, we actually enhanced it with her amazing wallpaper. So we actually had her wallpaper printed on a sisal, so it actually gave a little sheen to it because it's quite a tight little small hallway, as you can tell. And it's a nautical scene. It's all the whaling. It's kind of, they're kind of going out of whale, so it's a little bit traditional of the island and an important part of the whaling community here on Nantucket. But it's really beautiful, and I think it's a great way to kind of hide this horrible mast because it was really an eyesore when we saw it. So as I said, we tried to enhance it versus hide it. So it's a tiny, tiny little hallway. All the original joinery is here, all the millwork, all these original raised panel doors. We just painted it all a dark sort of maritime blue, so it all go away because we couldn't hide the perfections of the plaster. We kept it, and as I said, we tried to just cover it, make it go away, but also enhance it. So it's a tight, tight, tiny little room. This original staircase, all we did here is we painted, and all the joinery, all the plaster is all original. And we have a collection of antique woolies going up the wall, just trying to keep the whole maritime thing coming through the home. And I just keep adding to it. Every time I go to an auction house, I bid on more. And that's the intention of this, to try to keep it old and just sort of classical maritime. So this home is from the 1760s. It was actually being sold by the Nantucket Historic Association. And I saw it and fell in love with it, but of course it needed a ton of work. We had been here on the island since 1997 and had a small cottage further down the street. And kind of as an interior design hobby, I loved to go into all these homes that were for sale. And when I saw this, I just immediately fell in love with it. But it was a big project. It was definitely a passion project. And it also came with 90 pages of conditions upon the sale. So there were a lot of things you absolutely had to sign off on preserving, which would have always been my intention, but you had to, this was definitely a labor of love project, but it was my labor of love. So it was much more than just an interior design project. We actually had to do some major restoration in the back of the house, and we just loved having this kind of project. We felt very grateful to be part of the history here and preserving this home. And just to have a home, it's literally one of the oldest, it's what was called the fish lots, which is one of the oldest pieces of property on the island. And 5 sea captains have lived here. So although I don't do themed interior design, that was a great precedent to say, okay, 5 sea captains, we're gonna make this really celebrating the maritime heritage of this home. And that's how we kind of took this on, and the love of it and the passion. And our family, as I said, has been coming here since 1997, so it's a very important part of our life. We just love being here. We love owning a little piece of history on Nantucket. So the original house was a 2.5-story lean-to, and it was just a very simple shaker house. The back of the house was actually where the cooking structure was, and it was a separate building for cooking on a rubble foundation. Over the years, it had seen multiple renovations, very unsympathetic, but multiple renovations. By the time we got here, the back of the house was actually sinking. So there was really no way we could preserve the back L of the house. So we had to go through extensive HDC and zoning planning and tons of permission. It actually took us almost 3 years to get through that. So as I said, a labor of love, a big labor of love, because it took a lot to get through this. What we were allowed to do is we were allowed to take down certain walls, but not everything. And we really had to just keep the footprint. It started as about a 2,500 square foot house, and it's now a 3,500 square foot house. This tiny staircase was the only staircase in the entire house, which was included both the original structure, the original 1760 property, and the newer additions. The newer addition, which we removed, had a staircase, but it was external only. It wasn't even internally part of the house. So as I said, we got a permission from HDC and we were allowed to remove the walls and rebuild, but we actually kept all historic materials, all the beams, all the doors, and we purposely used it throughout during the construction to make sure we were keeping all the really important historic pieces of the building. So complementing my lovely wallpaper is my collection of hats. I wear a hat constantly. During daffodil season, of course, I have a Peter Beaton hat with daffodils ready to go because you have to wear a hat during daffodil weekend here. Gary McBournie and Bill Richards during Nantucket Design always host an amazing dinner party. So they always leave us with a hat that's part of a party favor. This was this year's Nantucket by Design party hat. And we all had to wear them throughout the dinner, which was super fun. But my endless, I just keep adding every year. My fisherman hat. I love all my hats, but nice to have them. And of course, my Italian one, which I love. That's when I'm being serious. But it kind of breaks up and keeps this house a little fun. You don't want everything, even though it's all antique, you don't want it to be just a total museum, so we had to have a little fun. So we just found this new, it's actually a contemporary, it's not really a hat stand, but we turned it into one with the bamboo, and I just thought it complemented all the serious darkness in here. And then, of course, every dog owner who has a dog that needs to go out needs one of these bells from in town, leather bells, so that's how the dogs know how to go out. So we give those as favors all the time when people buy homes. And our bin lock, which we added, there was to be honest, a really small piece of wooden hardware here, but we added this historic bin lock, which was very fitting for this style of house, which I love. Now we're walking into the living room. This is an important room because it's literally one of the original rooms of this home. This is the living room of the original salt box. And again, you can see these amazing floors. You don't see these very often. You can see all the little wormholes, but these are original, back to 1760. I like to do interiors that have pride of place. So this home was historic, and it's important that the interior kind of goes with the architecture. These are the original beams. We stained them just to make them look a little cleaner and neater, and gives it a little contemporary when you see it. When they had been all painted over, and there were layers and layers and layers of paint. So we took the time to strip them and bring the stain back. And I think that's an important part of the room because it sort of sets the tone with these floors as well. But everything's original here. The little shutters had the little heart cutouts. We promised to keep those, which of course we have. And the furniture is a real hodgepodge. We lived in London for a very long time, so I had collected a lot of old antiques from England that were just in storage units. So you see a lot of dark mahogany furniture, which is somewhat out of vogue right now, but I love it and I still think it's very beautiful. But we tried to mix it. These are contemporary chairs. It's from a company called John Himmel in Chicago. And a lot of people love coastal homes in Nantucket, but here I had to really keep it, as I said, more historic, but I tried to bring in some elements of more contemporary. Some would argue that these are too contemporary, and I get that, but I think they're fun, and I love the rope, and this house is full of rope and natural and sisal, and just it goes on, so I think they're quite perfect. I love to support the local artists on island. This is Joan Griswold. I found these at the Raphael Osana auction here on island, that he has auctions almost every weekend. So I'm constantly touring his auction house for good finds. And then I had these reframed. They're in a terrible, terrible old frame. I don't think anyone realized these were Joan Griswold's, so I feel very lucky to have those. This bench is very pretty. It's an inlay with bone. It's contemporary, but I love, again, the extra element it adds to the room. These are beautiful lithographs. These are from my house in London, black and whites, from a great map store, historic map store that I used to do work in when we lived in London. This is Shane Greco. Sylvia Antiques in town sells these, and this was a gift from family members, which I love. And it's an octopus, and I just think he's amazing. My John Rosselli lamps, I absolutely love these. These, again, are old inlay, but John Rosselli in New York sells these, and I saw them, and they're a bit of an investment, but I just thought they were so perfect in this room. I don't love rooms that are full of pattern, at least for my own homes. I love this kind of timeless design, and the colors that we use, the greens and the browns, we used all historic paints in here. So I tried to keep going with the historic colors through the elements we brought in. A little bit of leather, a little bit of sisal. Love this kind of olive green, a little bit of a glamour tape that we added, but I think it works. Again, this pen box, I got this, again, Raphael Osana, a little ode to Parrish Hadley. This was my very first design firm when I got out of college, one of my first design firms that I got the luxury and luck to work for. Over here, Biedermeier. Biedermeier, you either love it or you hate it. I think it's quite beautiful in here. This came from my home in London. Again, mishmash that sort of all worked. And again, this basket collection. Baskets are a very big part of Nantucket. You'll see Nantucket lightship baskets everywhere here. But what I tried to do is go through thinking through the maritime and the China trade and the different captains that would be trading throughout. So these are actually Japanese baskets. So again, I got these at Raphael Osana's, but I think they're amazing. And I just keep adding to them. And it just brings another texture, another element to the room. Again, not themey, but kind of special. Original fireplace. This is a William Johnson painting. He's at the Peabody Essex Museum. I actually found him in an antique shop. He had a tear in him, which you cannot see. I had him restored, and then I went to my frame shop up in Boston, A Street Frame, and together we added this more contemporary frame. But I think he really, it makes him stand out, and I think it really finishes him well, and you can't even see the tear. So obviously it's summer, but here you have some leftover hydrangea arrangements from my Thanksgiving. These are from my backyard, my hydrangea, but we're not using the fireplaces right now, so we're kind of hiding them. This is a great basket I found in the south of France many years ago, and just a little fun arrangement that we made during Thanksgiving, sort of left over some feathers and dried hydrangeas. That always fun. Oh, this is sort of cute. So I've had this chair for a long time. Again, Raphael Osana here on Island, but my eldest daughter, she's now 27, but at the time she used to sit in this cute little chair. Maybe the dog had a chunk, but we've had that forever, and it's kind of cute, kind of special. In all my homes, it's really important that people feel very comfortable. Although it looks like a very grown-up house and serious, we have a house full of children when they were little, and now of course they're grown up, but dogs, nothing's precious here. Although it's things I've collected over the years, and I have a lot of pride of place of my home, but you want to be able to come in your home, put your feet up, read a book. This room sees a lot of beating, even though it's a white sofa. This is a perennial cover on it. My dogs, they lounge here. They love to lounge in the sun. This couch has seen naps, these beautiful pillows, even with the beautiful serious trim. People sleep on this. So I want people never to feel uncomfortable in my homes. It's really important that you use your home and you love your home. It's not a museum. It may look nice, but you really want it to be a respite, a place that you use everything. We use every bit of our homes. This house has seen parties, but it's seen naps, it's seen book reading. This room sometimes is a Zoom room when we have a bunch of us working here, but it's very important that it's real and we keep it super real. Might be cleaned up a little extra today, but my Biedermeier actually has a computer on it half the time, and people sit here and Zoom, so it's functional. This is sort of pretty. This is my husband had this on my wedding day waiting in the limousine, and it's a screenplay to The Breakfast at Tiffany. Kind of special in this beautiful leather binding. This is a contemporary rug. This is from Stark. I do have a little pattern here just to kind of hide the reality of dogs and dirty feet, but I think it has a nice pattern to it, and it sort of warms up the room. We use this room more in the winter than we do in the summer because everyone's really outside. Now we're in the family room. When I bought the house, the NHA was actually using this as their dining room. It had a really strange closet that was definitely contemporary that was on one of the walls, and the wainscoting was original on the other half of the room, which you'll see, and I promised to leave that that was one of the conditions when we bought the house. So what we ended up doing is adding the same wainscoting and around the rest of the room, And then I also created these built-ins that are full of lots of objects. This is Robert Stark. He's an artist here on island. He's since passed away, but he and his son still own a gallery in town. I found that also at Rafael Osana's auction, and I gave that to my husband for his birthday. A beautiful box. I found this. Literally, it's some antique shop. It's an original Wedgwood box, which I think is really beautiful with the Wedgwood detailing. Love that. Of course, you can't have a New England guy without a little Harvard Gate. My kids, I always encourage my clients, you want your children's art out, so you keep it real. So even though we have some great painting, keep it real with the things you find. That's what makes your homes more about you. Oh, these are kind of fun. All of these bottles, we found these during construction when we opened up the walls. So I've just kept them because I thought it was really fun to see little trinkets of old history that we found in the house. So that's really fun. This is a mix of old and new. Again, we have the original floors that carry out through here. It's a very awkward room because it's very long. It took me a bit to figure out how to make it work. We probably use this room more in the winter because everyone's outside, but it's a very, very cozy family room. So we have great movie nights in here. This is a great puzzle table. So if someone else is watching a movie, you can be sitting in the corner doing a puzzle, or you have your reading area. This is a Nantucket basket. I do a different basket every summer. I have a whole collection, some I've given away. Actually, this is my daughter's, Eliza Paton, Nantucket, 2008. So kind of fun to see. This is an important part of history here, doing these lightship baskets. So I love to have my kids make these. This is a fun painting. I lived in London for a very long time. I also had a store, Kristin Paton Home. So I was constantly going to Paris and sending containers back. This is from Cailíní Coastal in Paris, and I just loved it. It's fish and cheese, and I just thought this is a fun composition. Not famous, but I loved it. This is the artist on island called John Devaney. He's here and also in Boston. When I first bought that piece of art, I really disliked the frame, and I thought it was way too much. So I actually spent money to soften the frame and make it really more simple. And then when I hung it up, I realized you needed to have that Rococo frame. So we popped it back on. He's kind of fun. He's a sailor. Over here, again, the house is so serious with all the history, but we brought in this slim Aarons. It came from another property, and I just love it. And we spend a lot of time in Europe as well, and our kids were all born in London, so I thought it was fun to have a little piece of the French coast, French Riviera here. Another Nantucket Association piece of art that I found. Same with this one. This one's Susan Briskman. She's a Nantucket artist. This is the original fireplace. We didn't do anything to it. We actually were not allowed to do anything to it. So the whole room is one color. It's a Gettysburg gray. It's just one color throughout. So it kind of hides the imperfections because these are all the original plaster. So what we did was we just cleaned it up where we could. But as I said, we had a lot of conditions. So we just made the whole room the same color, so everything kind of goes away and it feels just more cohesive. You can't be in Nantucket without a whale spear. So we found this at an auction house, maritime art, so that's kind of fun. What's kind of interesting is the beams. The beams were original to this house, and again, they were covered in paint. So we spent a lot of time, actually this one may have been okay, but there are others that were just actually painted over. So we spent a lot of time to bring it back because I think they're really special, and that's part of the history. And you can see how this original beam is actually in the window casing. Our on-island contractor, Dwyer Maloney, actually we tried to make the ceiling look old to match the walls. So the plasterer worked hard with us so that the ceiling would actually match the walls even though the ceiling was new, so that it kept that continuity in the home. Here we have the beams as well, but you can see it, it adds a lot of character, and I think really celebrating the character of these old homes is super important here. A lot of people come to Nantucket and they want that typical blue and white coastal, and nothing wrong with that, but this house you really had to celebrate all the historic culture and all the historic pieces of this home, and so we had to kind of go with that. But then, even in an old home like this, you have these modern touches that give it a little life so it doesn't feel just so old and granny-like. Contemporary tables. As I said, 5 sea captains have lived here So part of the decor theme was to go with the idea of campaign and maritime, and I thought these fit. They're contemporary, but they have their leather, they have the simple Parsons and the campaign hardware. So I thought they were very fitting in this house. These are contemporary, these are from Vaughan. They are a ceramic vase that is all tortoise, but I love them and I feel like it adds another texture to this room, because this room could be pretty drab on its own with the Gettysburg, which, although I love the color, it just, not everyone would understand it because it does get a little dreary, and a lot of people, as I said, want those cool blue and white colors, whereas I really had to embrace 1760. So now we're entering the new wing of the house. We're leaving the original 1760 structure, and this is where I had the challenge to make sure the new wing just didn't look like a contemporary addition. I wanted it to really have a flow. So I kept the Gettysburg going through, the original colonial colors going through, and this is our mudroom. You're really supposed to enter through here. We don't. We end up using the kitchen. These are amazing sconces I found on First Dibs that kind of go in with that British colonial look and have the Star Hurricane. These were kind of a splurge, but I just felt they were so perfect here. Antique chairs that I've collected over the years, hall chairs. I love my dogs, but they're not always great with my antiques. We had a little chunk out of that, but that just adds to the character. And now coming in here, these are old beams that we salvaged when we took off this back L of the house and repurposed them. So we tried to use as much as possible. This was a transom. Again, we tried to use as much old material from this back L, the original back L, as possible. So now we're coming into my powder room, and the powder room, actually we salvaged all the original sheathing to the back L of the house, and we've reused it almost as wallpaper. So all the walls, all the ceiling are the original sheathing, and we treated it, of course, but there it is. And then I found this piece of stone back in Hyannis that already had this leathered texture to it, which I thought was really great. And you wouldn't really think of marble in this house, but I think it works really well with all the colors and the texture. Again, John Sylvia in town, one of his artists. A little bit of Etsy with a little rope. My office had the 33 made for me as a gift. Contemporary sconces and a contemporary rope mirror. My beloved waterworks with tarnished brass. These are fun. These are from Portobello Road. When we lived in England, I used to go to Portobello Road every Saturday. So these have been around a very long time. More of my husband's handiwork with our ready-made shades, but I just think they're great. Not everything has to be expensive. This is very fun. This is a gift someone had made for me a very, very long time ago. Nantucket basket, and has my initials in it, and I treasure it. It was a gift, and I just love it. Actually, here's the inside of it. 2000, pretty special. I should use it more, but I like it so much and I'm afraid to hurt it, so I use it more as art, but I love that. The floors in here are limestone, Waterworks limestone called Piedmont. I just love it. It's just enough to keep with a historic interior, but a little bit, not glam, but I just love it. It makes me happy every time I see it. In here, this is my mudroom. I can't show you inside because it's full, but we added some leather detailing. Again, a company in London called Turnstile, which I think is really nice. My father-in-law had these lovely hats. We do scalloping season. So he had these team hats made for us of 33, which I really like. My son's company, Joss Bartlett, little hat for him. And my husband had this Anya Heinmark gift for me made up, Fred and Harry. And then the house, which I think is kind of fun. Just another lithograph, again, from my beloved King's Maps in London that I buy a lot of things for clients and myself. We added these doors. This was a really dark hallway in the original structure. And we added these doors and just a little bit of wallpaper that just give it a little texture as we're transitioning now into the more contemporary wing of the house. But again, trying to make it all mesh together so it doesn't feel jerky and out of place. It just feels continuing. I like each room to almost have a surprise. So we went from paint to now we're into texture and now another surprise. I like the vistas to kind of be surprising so that you look forward to the next vision. now we're walking into my kitchen, and I like to give my interior projects almost a story, if you will. Not a theme, but a story. And as we had 5 sea captains live here, I very much went with the idea of maritime, colonial, and this is a break front that is actually, my idea here was a campaign piece, which would have been appropriate in the time. And it's actually my bar. It hides a wine cabinet and a drinks fridge and wine. It's loaded with all my tableware and placemats and napkins. And then of course, endless glasses for entertaining and drinks. We love to have a party here. We do a lot of entertaining. So this bar gets set every single night. More of my handmade baskets I've made over the years, and just collectibles throughout the years. These are cute little Firkin lamps that I got at Raffaello Sana's that I love. I love a nice martini at the end of the night, as does all my kids. So my husband had gifted me this martini set with the octopus, which we love and we use all the time. And just things that we collect all the time. This is fun. This was a gift when we lived in London. Friends of ours gave this to us as quote unquote the life of the party, so that we kept going. So we love that and we keep that in here. This house does a lot of entertaining, so it's an important piece in the room. And lots of collectibles, Wedgwood plates, colonial plates that we've been collecting forever. We do scalloping season here, so these are our roadies for scallop season with our 33 and our scallop that good friends gifted us. Lots of collections, but we love this piece, and it's, as I said, in the style of campaign. Great hardware. Original Whitechapel, which is a company in Midwest that makes the original hardware. I kind of gave this kitchen the story of sort of colonial tavern, if you will. We added the beams. This is all the brand new wing of the house. We really wanted it to feel very congruous to the original rooms. This is a real kitchen. We do real cooking, lots of entertaining. This is a 10-foot island that sees a bar set up at night. It sees lots of entertaining, lots of friends. We work at this counter. We absolutely love this kitchen. We have a combination of very simple shaker style cabinets that are painted that would have been historically correct. We added all the beams. We have this more contemporary island with the Cerussed oak that kind of gives it a little more contemporary flair. I saw this marble at Liamar in Hyannis, and I absolutely fell in love with it. To me, it just almost looks like sand or waves, so I felt like it was appropriate, and of course we had it honed. But I love this, and I get more compliments on that. It's called Nero Diamante. I found these 2 light fixtures in London. I really fell in love with a pair of light fixtures from Ann Morris in New York, but they were not in my budget. So I kept searching further and found these, and I feel like they really set the tone. They were technically train station lights that were reproductions, but they just felt very fitting in my little colonial style pub kitchen, pub tavern. I love to have art. I love to have art in a room, especially in a kitchen. This is the center of our home. It's an epicenter. We do so much in here. So it's loaded with our art. I love my champagne, so we found these fun Veuve Clicquot's. Actually, it has a real bottle in it, but had Nantucket put on. I had a store. These are left over from my store, but they're fun. They're actually ice skating rinks. And I love my picture lights. It just gives another glow of light. This is my Corneau. We do a ton of cooking, so I love that. I think it's super fun. One of my best friends in Switzerland sent me these bells from her canton in Switzerland. They're actual real cowbells, which I love. One of my favorite things, my needlepoint that my good friend Fleur did. All my collection of cookbooks, which I really do use a lot. My husband just gifted me a birthday week out at the ranch in California, so these are actually new to our collection, but we use these all the time. Now we're gonna move into our dining room, which is really an extension of the kitchen. I decided to make this cased opening because the 2 rooms were too big and we don't technically have a formal dining room. So this was a last minute decision, which sometimes happens when you're designing. This cased opening, which separates the 2 rooms and gives a little bit of difference in height. We actually found all this wood material later. This is not original to the house. We actually found an old barn in Ohio and added this material to kind of make this really go with my colonial tavern feeling and make it not just feel like a brand new addition. The banquette, I always knew I wanted to do a banquette. These are actually all the old doors that couldn't fit in the house, and we just stained them to make this cool banquette. It was actually Dwyer, my builder's idea. He did the work at the Languedoc Bistro down in town, and he had done one for the restaurant, and I just thought it was a brilliant way to reuse the doors. It's cozy. When we're here dining, this is not an important table. It's just a contemporary resto table, but it sees a lot of entertaining. And I also use this as my scallop wreath building table, so it's also arts and crafts, so it needed to be sturdy. We do a lot of entertaining. This little area has seen probably 16 people sit here all at the same time. And I have lots of different layers of lighting. I've got the picture light. I have the wall lights. We always turn on these John Rosselli hurricanes. It makes it very, very intimate. But another trick is with all the windows, if you sneak through, you can see the hornbeams in my backyard. I have little sneaky uplights that are hidden in the trees. So when you're here dining, the whole backyard actually illuminates. It's a very small area, but the hornbeams are so architectural, and I have just enough lighting, so it just adds to the ambiance of the dinner. And you have your candlelight, but then you have just that touch of lighting in the background, which really is kind of special. These pictures are kind of fun. These are lithographs I got at Raphael's. They were terrible. They were in actually just really crappy aluminum frames. And I took them to my lady Liz at 8th Street Frame, and it was really her idea to add this cerusing with my kitchen, not to match it, but just to make it not feel so funereal and dark. It just makes it a little bit contemporary. It's okay to add contemporary elements to very traditional decor. And you know, here we have the maritime theme. They're all different, but they were just so perfect for this wall. I mean, sometimes you just find things and they're just perfection. They were just made for these walls. And again, here's more of our do-it-yourself. So if we need to have it be a little more intimate, or if we need to let the light in, some of our little do-it-yourself shades, cheap and cheerful. My crab is very special. I used to have a home furnishing store, as I mentioned earlier, in Cambridge. He came from Cailíní in Paris. He's teak, he's hand-carved. He was found, he's technically from Spain, but I found him in the flea markets. He's been here a while, and he's missing a leg, but that's okay. So I thought it's a good idea to point out these chairs. Not everything in your house has to be precious. So when I was doing the decor in this house, it was during COVID, so it was really hard to get anything because all the factories had shut. So I found these actually on Amazon, and I thought they were so perfect because it kind of had my theme. It had the rattan, it had the dark wood, and they were very, very inexpensive. So I thought that's kind of a good interior design trick of high-low. My hurricanes are actually a hell of a lot more than 10 chairs, but high-low balance, that was a to me from me. And of course I have 2 more lithographs of the whaling scenes, which I think are really great, and how perfect. I just found them and they just fit perfectly and pretty amazing. Sometimes you just find things. I think I need to point out my woofers. This is my puppy dog corner. We were living in London at the time, and Max, my first sheepdog, couldn't come to the States because of quarantine laws. So good friends of ours had Max painted, so he'd always be in the US. We came from a visit. And then Harry, you met. Harry's running around, Dirty Harry. And this was Fred. We just lost Fred at November, but this is my little corner of my Polish sheepdogs. These are both done by my friend Erica, who's an artist at the Art Association here on Nantucket, and we love those. I love this chair. It's good to point this out too. This was a good precedent image. Sometimes you find something that sets the tone. I knew I was going with this kind of colonial tavern feeling, and we saw my colonial bar, my campaign bar, but these are actually contemporary. I found these at First Dibs. They're Ralph Lauren, actually. It's new fruit wood, but I just loved the sisal and the roping, and I just thought that was just another great detail, and they're just perfect here. And they're knockoffs of what's called Orkney chairs in Scotland, and it's just Ralph Lauren's take on it, but I thought they were super cool. This house was featured last summer at the Nantucket Garden Club tour. So we had a Nantucket Captain's House book made that really tells about the history of this house, and they are available for sale through our office. But what's kind of cool, if you decide to buy one, this shows really what this house went through. the front room that we saw earlier, that's the foundation. It's the tree trunks. So we actually lifted those old boards that are still there, but we lifted them because we had to reinforce the tree trunk foundation. But in the 1760s, that's literally what they used for your foundation. So it's kind of a cool special detail. But anyway, the book tells a lot of the history and follows a lot of what happened to this home, our passion project. Another whale, we collect whales wherever we go. When we were dropping off our daughter in college in California, we saw him and he had to come home. My office gifted this basket to me during one of our installations, which is kind of cool. And I have all my collections of my Nantucket books. My husband's aunt, Phyllis Forbes, wrote this book, Letter from China, which is very cool, about the China trade, which is a very kind of cool maritime book, which is kind of special. And this is just our little corner for anything Nantucket, kind of special. An old picture of Scott and I in England going to Glyndebourne, which is kind of special. We'll take you outside soon, but the ironmonger shed, which is original to the property, which was used for an ironmonger that did little pieces for the whaling boats and things like that. It's now our captain's shed, which we call our bar. We were featured in Off Duty in Wall Street Journal back in June. This is a photo done by Reed McKendry, who is the photographer of this house. Kind of special. Again, here's just another little element. This is a contemporary Vaughan piece, a table. Believe it or not, it actually flat packs into a box when it ships. But it's just another element. It's faux and contemporary, but I love it. And it just adds a lot of extra element of design. I also want to point out these bar stools. So this is, again, an example. These are probably 20 years old. They came with me from another residence. They're just front gate. And I get more compliments and more questions about these chairs. They're just front gate, but again, it has that campaign design that I was going with. So I just had to take them with me. If these were for a client, they wouldn't work because they don't technically go under the apron. But that could be another project for my husband if we just take off the caps, and I can take that off and we can pop them down. And as you can see, my beloved dogs loved them from 20 years ago and they were puppies. So, but I love them. They're super fun. Now we're going out to our little in-town backyard, which is petite, but we use every inch of it. We're huge entertainers. And this little area has multiple little seating areas. We use this house all year round. So in the summer, of course, it's beautiful and you can sit out and read a book. At night, this becomes a really great little cocktail area. October and November, this is where we do our shucking after scallop season. And we have these kind of sheet blankets and a little fire table comes out here. And this becomes a shucking area after scalloping with a few little beers. During Nantucket by design in the summer, we sometimes will cover this to make in case of rain. So we have little sailcloths that we actually have hooked up to the house so that we have the extension of the kitchen. This becomes almost like outdoor dining, just an extension. I'll often open these doors up completely so you have this indoor-outdoor effect that is important to entertaining. Every now and then we might have a little dinner outside or a little fun little lunch. Sometimes we work out here. I always have my umbrellas, but it's just a tiny little in-town garden, but we've tried to make it very special. Small amount of gardening. I'm not a huge gardener. You can see the condition of my roses. I'm not a great gardener, but I'm trying. But we do have a little bit of hydrangea and just a little pretty area. I should point out this building. This is original to the property. This was an ironmonger shed in the 1800s, and it was always here. We did change some of the stone and foundation, but this is the original building, original windows, it's all original. So what was an ironmonger shed, we have turned it into what we lovingly call our captain's bar. A lot of quarter boards on houses here, so I took the Walt Whitman, "Oh Captain, My Captain," and that's our quarter board here. Because of the 5 sea captains, I didn't want to just give it to one, so I've now reference all of them. This is the original ladder, actually, that went up to the Widow's Walk. We had to replace the Widow's Walk with something new and sturdier, so we salvaged that. My kids think I'm tacky for having these out, but these are scallop lights that we made left over after our shucking. We bleached the scallop shells and we made these fun little twinkle lights that I'll put on sometimes at night. And sometimes my husband and I, there's a TV in here, we'll watch Wimbledon or we'll sit here and have dinner, and we have a little date night here at our captain's bar with our campaign style chairs. But we use every inch of this backyard. It's tiny, but it's beloved. Now I can take you into our captain's shed. This was the original door, actually, too, which is kind of fun to see. Hopefully you'll get to see all the before pictures, but where I showed you the before and after is sort of the original building to where we added. This was a big 35-foot pit, to be honest, and I hope you do get to see the before pictures because this is all new. So come on into our little shed, our little bar. We kept the original windows, and as I said, this inside piece is also a piece of the original widow's walk ladder, so that serves as a little shelf for our bar. And we have a contemporary photograph of Cottages from a photographer here on island, and we turned this into just a cute little indoor bar. My kids spend a lot of time in here. Sometimes if friends of ours, their kids maybe live out in Sconset and they've missed the bus, this turns into an extra bedroom if we need it. But we love this little area. Again, leftover pieces of wood from our widow's walk. Collectibles, maritime collectibles from Raphael again. My husband, his godparents would send him these pewter mugs with his initials on it, and those were a gift. He's a collector, so we have all his pewter mugs out here. My funny little stingray, again from all my trips to Paris. But these were all the floorboards here. We just painted them. This was really a train wreck in this space. We just gave it a fresh coat of paint. We did add, there were additional leftover doors that didn't fit anywhere that we used on the walls just to give a little texture, and again to honor the fact that we were using every square inch of the renovation. Our little article I showed you inside, my husband had that framed. But just another, important little part of the architecture of the house. So now we're gonna go upstairs to the second floor. This is the landing that we created, again, part of the new wing. And as a designer, the world's your oyster to think about what you want to do. Knowing this was very contemporary, I felt that this was a really important area to get right. My original plan was to add a wood and batten detail, which we do often. It's a cost-effective way of adding millwork to something contemporary like this, but I wanted it to have some more character. So I started looking at different murals, and of course I love all the Fromentels and Degournays, and Gracie in particular had an amazing maritime pattern, but it just wasn't in the budget. So then I found this is actually a digital mural that Schumacher does with a company in Istanbul called Excel. So technically this is the Bosphorus, but what we did was we decoupaged anything that looked like an Ottoman building. So it really just looks maritime and nautical. And as I said, it's digital, so it's more cost friendly because this hallway sees a lot of luggage and a lot of movement. The carpet is Roger Oates, which is a company in England, and Roger Oates, it hides the dirt with the dogs, but I also think it looks very nice, so I try to balance elegance with practicality. These are things that I literally just repurposed. This is a console table that I had from another home. Same with a mirror, and I just kind of put it all together. Sometimes as a designer, it's just all the composition. This is sort of fun. This is from H&M Home Store, which I love, which was probably $10. And these are all gifts. This was a gift. We host Scallop Weekend, so my girlfriend Mary gave that. My office gave that to me for Christmas, which I love. We have Kristin Paton home candles after the scent of Shalimar, which I love, that we've had made up. Map in Nantucket. And every Nantucket home needs a cranberry rake. I'm sure you have seen those before. These are fun. These are from Amanda Lindroff in the Bahamas. We bring these outside at night when we're entertaining just to add a little fun festive light. And I think that's it. This is actually contemporary floor. So we tried to match that to the original. This is from a company in New York City called PID. It's actually engineered flooring, but the color match was really great. So I love that. So now that we're on the second floor, this gives you a great opportunity to really see this Excel panel, which I think is super special and really makes the hallway. I had it done in a sepia print so that it really isn't color. It's just the tones of the house that I've used everywhere, and it kind of goes background. Nothing's jarring. It's a print that you could live with forever. And that's how I think of design a lot of times, because look, design's expensive, and interior design, you want to really think through how you're living, and I'm not going to be changing this every 10 years, so probably it'll fade, but with the windows, but I just think it's so special, and it really enhances this kind of really dull modern hallway. We have our great Vaughan light fixture, I love Vaughan, that just seems to fit really well. A campaign chest I found at Raphael, good old Raphael. This is an antique Persian carpet from one of my resources in the design center. I love Stephen King, really beautiful. So now I'm going to take you to the very end of the hallway, to the master bedroom. We're going back to the original home. The second floor is original to the house, and I'm going to take you there next. And you're going to see the transition from this new floor to the old floor, and we're back to our 16-inch wood floorboards. So before we go into the bedroom, I think it's important to kind of see this space. When I bought the house, both of these doors went into this bedroom, and I had to make a decision, because when you get in the room, you'll see. I ended up closing this door in the hallway and had this become the main door into the room. But you can see the sloped floor. This is because of the chimney mast, the mast that we saw downstairs. This is all part of that chimney mast, and you can see the buckling of the floors. Not everyone would be okay with that, but we were. It's part of the charm of an old historic home. So now let's go into my bedroom. Tuck your head again. This is an original door. All original, and we painted. This room actually has a lean-to, which you probably can feel when you walk in. All the boards are slanted, and there's a lean-to towards Orange Street. I ended up deciding to make this a closet. So these are two closets with built-ins, because that could hide the lean-to issue, because there's actually 6 inches. If you see the baseboard, it's all crooked. So I made the top of the built-in all symmetrical, or as symmetrical as you can in an old house. You see a little bit of sag. And then this is where we hid the 6 inch, because not everyone can notice this. So all the built-ins are here. And then this house is in the National Register, and I saw an old picture of it, and there was a canopy bed in the picture. So I just thought, I'm going to put a canopy bed back in this room, but there's actually a window behind my bed, and I have a thing with symmetry. So I really wanted to be able to walk into the room and have this sort of symmetrical elevation. So we hid the window. We did these canopies with fine lines, my workroom in Boston, and we found this great trim with just really an inexpensive linen. And so we brought back the canopy into this room. Here you see, again, my woofers, my friend Erica, another one of my pups. Little artwork I got at Cailíní. That's of the Venetian Biennale, which I love. This is an old desk from my home store with the matching Biedermeier chair that we had downstairs. I actually thought when I was in design school I wanted to be a renderer. So I was a very much a follower of Jeremiah Goodman, who was a famous interior renderer in the interior design world. So I have 2 of those watercolors. This is of Carlos Dubesky's dining room. He was a very famous entertainer. And this is actually Rose Cummings, her New York City salon. So I think those are super special. And it's just a very simple bedroom. The beams in here, I didn't spend the money to take the original wood back, so I've left these painted. So the whole room is kind of painted one color, because it's a bit of a muddle. You know, it's a small room. It has very low ceilings. So we just kept it sort of simple. In a lot of Nantucket homes, the rooms are adjoining and they don't have separate hallways. So what I decided to do is turn this into a bathroom. It was a small bedroom when we originally bought the house, as these are the 2 original parts of the second floor of this home. And I got permission to add that window, which is brand new. HTC gave me permission. And this became my little master suite. So I have the master bathroom right off my bedroom. And again, we just tried to keep the same gray historic colors to keep it calm and not make this some crazy bathroom. And it's just really simple. My do-it-yourself shade. Great tassel when we were in Asia. Erica Scully gifted me this, one of her beautiful renderings that I love. She did this. She's the Nantucket Art Association artist. Shaker boxes that we collect. I love a good box collection. And my girlfriend Fleur that downstairs did the needlepoint also did this for me for my birthday, which is very, very special. And this beautiful rug. It's another one of these Persian rugs that are just small, hard to find these kind of small rugs, but it kind of had the right colors and it worked. The vanity is just a very, very simple apothecary style vanity that I had custom made through Palmer Industry in Rhode Island. And then we just did a very simple honed stone top. I love waterworks fixtures. They're classical and elegant. And I had this one made with black handles just for a little something extra. Big, huge mirror. Just keep it serene. You know, I don't think bathrooms in Nantucket should be full of fancy marble. I just wanted it to be kind of quiet and simple, and apothecary definitely would work with an older home like this. And then of course baskets for overflow from waterworks. All shaker style, very simple, all painted and simple. Home is such an important place to me. I love having my kids home. I love to entertain. There's no place I like better. It's just great being here. We create memories, and now that my children are older, when they're here, it's so special. And it's just really important, not just an interior designer, but just to my family. And we feel very lucky to have this legacy on Nantucket. Homeworthy, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you. It's time for me to get back to work, but thank you for this opportunity and hope to see you another time in another project or another home. Safe travels.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're taking you inside Gary McBournie and Bill Richards' incredible oceanside escape on the island of Nantucket. Together, they have transformed what was once an unassuming and neglected boat shed into a breezy summer home perfect for entertaining. Drawing inspiration from the island's captivating natural beauty and rich architectural heritage, Bill and Gary infused the space with a delightful nautical flair. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Gary.
And I'm Bill. Welcome to our home on Nantucket. Come on in.
This is Gary McBournie. Welcome to our home in Nantucket, which we have named the Cottage. And we are a little island out to sea.
I don't think you were supposed to do that part.
Hi, I'm Gary McBournie. Welcome to our home on Nantucket, which we have named the Cottage.
Hi, I'm Bill Richards. Nantucket's a small, quaint island 30 miles off the coast of Massachusetts, and someplace that we're lucky enough to call home. This house is approximately 4,000 square feet. There are 4 bedrooms, 1 on the main floor, 2 on the level, and the master or the primary is up in the crow's nest, which we like to call it, which affords great views.
This house didn't start off as a residence. It was basically a boat shed or boat house. It's up from the beach, so it's probably more of a boat shed, which is why it's tall and has the sort of cupola space on top. The boats would, come in and fill up the space vertically. And when we found the house, it had been changed into a guest house back in like 2000, and was very rustic. And we set off to, make it our home.
It was very much like a mountain cabin, which felt very much out of place, especially, New England, coastal situation.
Well, yeah.
He wasn't attracted.
When we first saw the house, I was definitely not attracted to this property. It was pretty bleak, and it like Bill said, it looked like a mountain lodge. I could not see myself in it. I like light, bright spaces because it had originally been a boat shed or a boathouse. There were very few windows, which we had to add. So it was not love at first sight for me. Bill, on the other hand,
he saw problems, I saw possibilities, and lots of white paint.
Yeah, lots of white paint, and addition of lots of windows.
Welcome to our covered porch, which also serves as our entry for friends and family. Covered porches play a big part in most of the homes that we do, as covered porches on Nantucket serve as another room, extension of the living room, the kitchen, whatever it might be. In this case, let me show you what we have here. We actually have a living room and a dining room that we've developed. We wanted to carry sort of a casual, almost 1930s, 1940s feel in here, so we used this bamboo and rattan furniture. The furniture is covered with a perennials rough and rowdy fabric in a wonderful blue, and to complement that blue, used our own Gary McBournie home fabric for the pillows. The red poppy fabric and what we call the Shakamo stripe. You'll notice the lamps on the end tables, which are kind of fun. They're vintage oyster shell lamps. They're handmade by a woman somewhere like in the mid-Atlantic. We bought them a number of years ago, and despite the fact that the shades are not outdoor shades, we make them work. Once or twice a year we spray them with bathroom cleaner, and believe it or not, that does the trick. The blue theme, really it's an extension of what we did on the inside. If you'll notice the blue and red, it's very similar to the blue and reds that we used in the living room. So it really does keep the porch feeling like an extension rather than a separate building or whatever it might be. So the table is set with pieces of dinnerware that we purchased during COVID at auction. COVID was a time when the house was being built, and because we were actually staying in the garage apartment at an adjacent property, we had a lot of time on our hands. So my fingers were very nimble, and I bid on a lot of things that are now stored in the cabinets and on the table here. These little glasses here, it's made by a company called Effortless. Very collectible, sort of a 1930s sort of wonderful blue glass with sailboats. We have some Tarlo glasses with little sailors on them, which are kind of fun. The anchor plates are from a company called Cascada, and the owner of the company has Nantucket roots, and she's always been very generous in donating auctions to our silent auction for Nantucket by Design. The silverware on the table was found in Ilsa at a street market. It's old restaurant silverware, and they all have different markings on them. The glasses, another Massachusetts or New England company, Simon Pierce, favorite of ours. The dinnerware, we have a collection of Spode here. We have a Fitzhugh, and then we have a blue clipper that work nicely together. We like to mix and match dinnerware. We have a large collection of napkins and napkin rings when guests come to our home and they want an experience. So Gary and I happily indulge them with different things that come from our inventory. Well, both of us love gardens, and surrounding the structure, we have a lot of Russian sage, which is really nice. People often mistake it for lavender, but a different kind of flower. And especially at this time of year, it has a lot of height and a lot of movement. And one of the things we did install, which makes this room very versatile, is we do have heaters. They're done in a white, it's a white sort of fabrication, so they don't really stand out, but they do take the chill off, especially at the beginning of the season and the end of the season. Really extends the use of the room. We've also, we're fortunate enough with the gardens that we do have, is that rather than head to the farm or wherever we might go for flowers at other times of year, we can pretty much go out into the yard and just with a pair of scissors and create little bouquets like this, or we have a larger bouquet over here of hydrangeas. This was a very long season for hydrangea, and we did plant different varieties, which they bloom at different times. But even at the end of summer here, we still have a lovely bouquet. Now I would like to introduce you to the interior of the home, so if you'd follow me in. Welcome to our great room. This room is actually a combination living room, dining room. It's right off the main entry, a very welcoming space when you first come into the house. When we first looked at this house, it looked nothing like this room that you're seeing right here. The beams were actually, everything in here was like orange wood, but the two support beams had a second pair behind them, but they weren't actually beams. They were actually stripped trees with the root splay actually cut into the floor. So with the wood floor, the wood ceiling, the trees, it very much felt like it was a set from The Hobbit. It was a little bit on the eccentric side. Further, the fireplace here was all in stone, which made for a very heavy look. Again, it took the look of a mountain house, very out of place in this beautiful seaside location. The front part of the room was actually a kitchen as well as a dining room. After we played with the house, we actually moved the kitchen into one of the two wings on the house. But the kitchen originally, we had one half on one wall, one half on the other wall. And the thing that was really odd was the sink was on this wall, but the stove was over there. And the span of the room, as you can see, is quite large. So in the event there was any sort of fire or mishap or whatever, the distance was ridiculous. So one of the first things we did do was we took away the trees that had been here. We replaced the two in the front with actual beams. The other two proved to be decorative and not of a supportive nature, so that was great. It created more room in what we use as the living space, took the sofa a bit more away from the fireplace, which was great. We closed up the entry to the bedroom, which had been there. It sort of mirrored the one on this side, and opened up the kitchen, which is over there. When designing a great room such as this, one of the challenges is how to effectively use the space. It's very easy to sort of put your furniture almost more on the perimeter of the room, and then the room just feels overly large, and you're not really making the best use of the space. In the case of this room, we wanted a distinct dining room and a separate living room. So we did that in two ways. The columns obviously provided a natural division, but then to reinforce that, we have a carpet here as well as another carpet in that room, and then further separating, we have a console. So today it pretty much looks as a console, but if we were having a dinner party, this very often serves as more of a buffet or a serving table. The light fixtures also help reinforce the distinction as well. Clearly this very large brass chandelier says that this part of the room is a dining room, and the lantern by the fireplace just identifies that as a separate living space as well.
I started out in the industry, to go in the Wayback Machine. When I went to school, I studied painting, and I thought I was going to become an artist, which, after then studying art history after that, I realized I was never going to be a great painter. So I went on to design school.
He's a good painter.
I'm a decent painter, but I'm not, I wasn't going to make a living at it. And I studied art history, graduated from that with, and decided, now what do? I don't really want to work in a museum, and I'm not going to, or a gallery. So I decided, to start doing interior design. Went back to school, worked for a designer in Boston for 11 years, Richard Fitzgerald, and then started my own company in 1993.
My path did not start with interior design. I spent about 30 years in the world of commercial insurance and risk management, focusing primarily on high-tech and life sciences companies, which Massachusetts was a great place for that at the time.
Which means my company now has the most incredible insurance.
So it may or may not be true, but
decorating our own spaces is a funny thing. A lot of designers love decorating their own houses. I hate decorating my own house. It's just too much pressure on me to make a decision.
It's almost
because
like the equivalent of writer's block.
It's like writer's block. There are so many choices out there. I can do that for clients. I cannot do it for myself. It's very difficult. So Bill, usually I'm the boss in the office. Bill's the boss at home, and
he's not the boss of me.
He's never going to be the boss of me either. So anyway, but I give him total reign to have his own opinion and come up with ideas. I actually, he becomes like a client, and I present schemes to him, and
Mike generally say, you can do better than this.
I've seen that's usually what he says at the beginning. So it takes us a little while to get there, but he becomes the client, and I'm his designer, and that's generally how it works. We started, I think, with this piece of furniture. I think this was the first piece we bought for the house. It's an Italian desk that we bought at Casa Gusto in West Palm Beach. We store candles and linens and things like that, and it's also a good casual bar. I work here on my iPad, and Zoom meetings, and it's also very easy to mix a martini at the same time. These chairs we also got at Casa Gusto, and they're George II chairs. We went into the shop. They were, they weren't inexpensive. We saw them. We just, it's like, if we don't buy these now, it's no time to think, because somebody else is going to want them. And the funny thing is I think 3 of our friends had seen the chairs also and were really annoyed with us when we had got them instead of them. Table's a new table. We wanted, I don't always love tables that expand, so I wanted one big table. We can serve, we can have 10 people at this table. We can bring in ballroom chairs and have 14, 16. So it's very very practical. I like it in white to contrast to the brown furniture. I'm still a brown furniture fan, which I know is hasn't been in fashion for years, but I kind of like the mix of things. I like antiques, and I like the way new things look with them. This cabinet is a German cabinet that we bought. We collect. Everything blue and white is good for me. So this is our latest collection. This is one of Bill's things that he bought on auction during COVID. We have a mix of things. It's English, it's Chinese, it's some Japanese in here, I think, too. I love anything like kind of transferware like this. The Coalport lions are a favorite of mine. I love the mottled sort of lapis feeling. Snuff bottles. Snuff bottles are little bottles that would hold snuff back in the 17th, 18th century into the 19th. I like anything basket, any kind of porcelain basket I love. This one's a favorite. Bill and I are big fans of anything made in Nantucket. The big industry here forever is making of baskets. Nantucket lightship baskets. Big fans of those. There used to be a separate basket museum here in Nantucket, but that's been absorbed into the Historical Association, which has an amazing collection. So baskets are good. We love sailor valentines, which the story used to be that the sailors made them for their loved ones while they were on the boats, which sounds great, but they usually were made in the islands somewhere in Polynesia or something like that, and brought home for them. Bill has never met a box he didn't like. He loves boxes. Ship model from a friend gave me as a birthday gift probably 25 years ago. Our good friend Judy Flynn, who love it still, all these years later. Big thing here also is purses made out of Nantucket baskets for women. Carry them around at cocktail parties. It's a nice one we got at auction. I just like the form. I love the little whale on top. That's I don't go to cocktail parties with it, but I do like to display it. The cabinets are great storage. One of the big challenges for this house, which probably for me was the biggest challenge, is because it was a boat shed, there were no closets. I mean, this wasn't designed as a home, so there's no place to store anything. It's been a challenge here. So part of the bookcases, which have our Nantucket books and our decorative arts books, which we love. But we are collectors, and you want a flag glass? There's flag glass. How about one with and as Bill mentioned earlier, sailors. So we have all kinds of goodies in here that we get along the way. This cabinet has more plates and glassware, and but they're good. They're great storage. They're all around the room. As I mentioned earlier, we kind of like a mix of things. This is a Maison Jansen coffee table, which I love. I like that sort of 1960s feeling in the room. The sofas are very streamlined and clean looking. Dioramas are a big thing for us to collect. We love the feeling of those, very whimsical. Again, more books. We actually do read them. And one of my happiest things is to come down from my bedroom in the morning and find guests all sitting around the room reading our books. That makes us feel really good. The ship painting gouache is by a French artist, Philippe Conrad. I've been collecting him for about close to 30 years and bought them originally in Paris, the flea market. And this one had been at Ralph Lauren on Newbury Street in Boston, and it came up for auction a few years ago, and I grabbed it. So I'm very happy to have it. Spy glasses, sailor spy glasses, ahoy, are great.
We got together sometime around in the early 2000s, and our careers were very different. And we spent a lot of time away from each other, and at a certain point we decided that if we were going to continue on in a relationship, something had to change in the dynamic. So because his name was on the door, it was much easier for me to change careers, and I had always believed in a second career, so this was a wonderful impetus to make that happen. When it first started, we decided to do a book, and the book became my training ground because we took a number of projects that he had done, and my job was to write a story for every project, and then every picture needed a caption. So it was constantly why. And we were, during Hurricane Sandy, we were holed up in a hotel in lower Manhattan. There was very little food around. So I think we had a bottle of vodka and some instant oatmeal to survive
and
Sandy.
a few bottles of red wine.
And with my foot basically on his chest asking why and plying him with vodka, we wrote the book. Which provided me a great design background and a great way to get into his head and figure out how and why our projects happen the way they do.
We met at a friend's birthday party 22 years ago now, his 50th birthday party. It was like one of those crazy evenings when you meet somebody and it's like you spend the rest of the night talking to one another, and it's like, okay, he's in my head now. It's been a good journey. But Bill actually we had connections from years before that, probably 10 or more years before that, because Bill, almost 20 years ago, he actually did Back to Insurance. He had done the insurance on our house outside of Boston, my house outside of Boston, which I hadn't connected. I hadn't connected the dots, and we had never met. So
we're sounding a little best in show.
We are sounding a little best in show, which is scary.
The two of us both set foot on the island, over 30 years ago, and I think we both felt the same way. We just fell in love with the place. It's a sandbar island, so the topography is rather flat. It's not like some of the other islands, more of a rock-based island. We have change or whatever. Very flat island. Dune grasses, blue skies, sand under your feet. Rich in history. Everybody knows about the whaling history, but it goes way beyond that. There was an actors colony here in the 20s. There was attempts at farming. There's a very strong female history here because when the men were off at sea, the women basically ran the shops and did all that kind of stuff. Really, just it's all, I find it enchanting.
And there's amazing architecture. Nantucket was one of the wealthiest towns in the country up until the 60s?
Yeah.
So the architecture is quite beautiful. Beautiful colonial architecture, Federalist architecture, Victorian, cobblestone streets, lamp lights, or gas lights. That's what I fell in love when I first came here. And also, it's a gardener's paradise. The air here and the sunlight is just perfect for gardening.
Well, it's a gardener's paradise if you don't account for all the deer.
Well, the deer, yeah.
Our house
Which
spends
is a
3/4 of the year with deer fencing around it to protect it for the summer.
Now let me show you our main guest room. The funny thing about this room is that it's a collection of a lot of things that we've had in many of our houses over the years. The John Robeshaw fabric, which we love, I like that, the sort of Indian hand-blocked feel of it, has been with us for, I think, 3 or 4 houses. The headboard the bed was in our last house. The quilt I've had for probably 25 years. The nightstands were in our first apartment in New York. So it's, chairs in the room, side chairs, were my mother's cottage and our last house. So it's a real mixture of things. I like I love this Laurel Piana sisal carpet. It just has a nice, crunchy, good feel to me. The paintings are an Italian artist who we had in our last house. They seemed really big in that house. The ceilings were very low. It was a very mid-century house here in the island, one of the few. And they fit perfectly here. They have a little more height, which is good. Oh, and funny enough is that the designer's home is never done. We are still missing a large mirror over our chest of drawers that someday we will find. Also, these another favorite of mine are these marbles, which I've been collecting since I was a little kid. These are actually my marbles from when I was probably 10 years old. That a couple of extra ones have been tossed in over the year. I put in this little picket fence basket. Of course, you have to have a whale. Christopher Spitzmiller, who we love. Interesting thing here behind the bed also is the windows where we added all the windows, a lot of the windows to the house, a lot in this room, to add a nice bright feeling, and you feel like you're in a garden when you're in bed. But where the windows needed to be placed was awkward with the headboard. The headboard hung over the windows, so we put the curtains across the bed to kind of unite the wall. And now Bill is going to show you the last room on the main level of the house, which is our kitchen.
Well, you've heard us speak about how much entertaining we like to do. Well, none of that would be possible without this wonderful kitchen. As we enter it, you'll notice that the kitchen is dominated by this large blue island and then topped with a pot rack from Ann Morris. The island has a marble countertop, which people may not want to use because it's so susceptible to staining, but it's a Vermont marble that we love. Once a year we bring someone in to clean it up, and it works for us. As far as the other features of the island, we decided to add these turn legs to give it a bit of a nautical feel and spirit of the rest of the house. Then we employed the services of a local decorative painter, Deirdre Mannix, to give it this wonderful character. She applied layers of paint and glaze to give it sort of a worn, antiqued look, and I just love the color. The glass knobs also add a little bit of reflective touch, and also it gives it a sense of age, I think. When people talk about painting their islands, should they be the same color as the cabinets or a different color of the cabinets? And as a general rule, we kind of look at the size of the space. In a smaller kitchen, an island painted the same color as the cabinets may work better and make the space feel larger. But in a space like this, where it is a bit oversized, the contrasting color really gives the island some personality and gives the kitchen a little personality as well. These lovely sunflowers, it's hard to miss as well, are from a local farm just down the street, Moore's End Farm. We watched them growing in the fields, and it was impossible not to stop the car and just pick up a bunch and throw them in this old crock that we have. Another feature I'd like to tell you about in the kitchen involves this sofa. Many times in a kitchen with a window like this, you'll find that the architect or builder wants to put a window seat in. Personally, I've never met a window seat that I find very comfortable. And typically they're against a window, so your pillow and back are leaning against the window, which feels somewhat awkward. So what we decided to do was take this mid-century Danish sofa covered in this wonderful linen that we found from a shop in West Palm Beach, Faustina Pace, and put the sofa in the kitchen. People initially thought it was a little bit strange, but almost everybody who wanders in this kitchen at some point within the first 30 minutes is seated at that, and usually with a glass of wine in their hand. So I've told you about how wonderful this kitchen is. Gary's actually the chef in the house. I do some baking, which I started primarily during COVID with the classic sourdough starter that everyone was using at the time. And believe it or not, let me show you what I have here. I actually have some sourdough ready to bake off for tomorrow's dinner. I've kept the actual starter since 2020, so it's very active. So another tip with a kitchen is to place artwork on any of the various wall space that you have. In this case, we had a space aside a pantry closet, and we used these great photographs by a local photographer, David Halliday, all nautically themed, so it ties in with the rest of the house. Then additionally, we have a wonderful painting It's of the Life-Saving and Shipwreck Museum, which is actually just down the street. It's by a wonderful artist friend of ours named Diane Dicker. And lastly, we have a great collection of reverse glass paintings of ships that I can't honestly say I know the provenance. I bought them at auction, but they look great in here. And again, it's just little things you can do to give your kitchen some personality. It's a room where you spend a lot of time, so why not? Typical dinner party for Gary and I on the island would involve fish. We have friends who will tell you that they've probably eaten swordfish here more times than they care to count, but we do serve other types of fish. Generally, we also source local produce. For dessert, I mean, Gary typically has, apples, berries, that sort of thing around. He makes a mean fruit cobbler, which we're lucky enough to enjoy one the other evening. And then lots of wine. When I introduced you to our living room and dining room, I mentioned that the kitchen had been moved into what had been a bedroom. Now we're moving into the mudroom, which had also been part of that same initial bedroom. The mudroom was great in this house because, as Gary mentioned, having been a boathouse or utility building, there weren't a lot of closets. So this gave us an opportunity really to create lots of storage space. It's also a nice place when you first come in, which this is the door we use most of the time. It gives you a place to put your sunglasses, your keys, all those miscellaneous things slide easily into the top drawer. We have an interesting couple of pieces of art here that I'd like to mention. The top one is by a friend of ours, an artist named Melly Cooper. Melly makes these incredible pieces, and it's actually made out of pressed paper. She makes a latex mold out of the actual objects that you see. Then she has her own paper pulp and presses it into the mold to make the form, and then she hand paints the designs on the object. Incredibly delicate work. The middle picture here is actually a family picture from my side, and I actually have a picture of my grandfather here in 1921, and for some reason, if he grew up in Salem, Massachusetts, they put all the boys in the photograph in sailor's hats, which is very apropos in the house. And now the weather instruments, this was something I had to have. We like to kayak and do those sort of water activities. So I have the guides here that will always tell me whether it's high tide, low tide, whether or not it's too windy, whatever it might be. So very, very fun to have around. Many of the things in the house have come from auction, and what I haven't mentioned to date is there's a big auction house on the island called Raffaella Sona. I picked up this little curiosity piece several years ago, and if you take a close look, it's actually real estate ads from years ago, and at one point, it was a listing for a little house in Wisconsin for $8,500. So we do know this is definitely from days gone by. We covered the walls in this space with a beautifully colored raffia wallpaper from Philip Jeffries. Because we have so much white in the house, this sort of adds some warmth, especially to an area that it is more kitchen, family oriented, that sort of thing. So we think it works rather well. We have very similar taste. And it translates from decoration, but down to our closets. There are many mornings we come out of the closet, not having seen each other till we're dressed, and one of us is going to, no, you can't wear that shirt.
Well, it's just now I put on a check shirt, and it turned out he had already taken out a check shirt to put on, but so he had to change. So we and design-wise too, we have very similar tastes. I think we both, one of the things that I guess attracted ourselves to one another was that we like everything Nantucket, everything nautical. We were both from Boston. We both grew up probably 10 miles from one another. So there's a lot of similarities in our life, and it's and back to the clothing thing. It can get a little scary because we have a lot of the same clothes, and unless we pack together when we're traveling, we could end up with a suitcase of exactly the same things. Except for shoes. We have totally different taste in shoes. Now I'm going to bring you up to our crow's nest. Along the way, I'm going to show you some artwork on the staircase. We collect antique, historic things, contemporary, local artists who we have great fondness for. Beautiful sailor valentines, nice woolly. There's a really nice portrait of a sea captain with his sextant. Very handsome guy. Usually they're kind of scary looking. This guy is somebody you would like to know. Another nice diorama, which very sweet little one. Also, I'm a big fan of flags. Have a nice pair of framed antique, probably from the 1890s or so, flags here. Love our rope handrail. I always try to incorporate one of these in our houses. Just nice nautical kind of feeling to it. Painting here we got in the south of France about 15 years ago. Don't know who the artist was, but great color. Before we get into our bedroom, there's a little vestibule, and we covered the walls in our own whaling flag wallpaper done for Gary McBournie Home. It's based on actual whaling flags of ships, which is there's a plaque of them at the Historical Association here on the island. We have this bamboo mannequin, which depending on which house it's in or what season it is, I dress differently. Great Regency bullseye mirror, a nice bobbin bookcase that again has that ropey kind of feeling we love. So now let's go on to the bedroom. When you first walk into our bedroom, I think you feel a sense of volume. It's a big room. High ceiling. This is where the mast of the ship would have been, or the boat, the sailboat. This again was all painted or urethaned pine, so it was very orange. We painted the whole thing out white. There were iron rods holding it together, which was simplified. The structure of the space just feels really nice to us when we're in here. The windows open out onto the water and the sky. Nighttime, morning, it's glorious up here. The bed was made to fit within this alcove sort of thing that happens with the beams. It tucks in, and the nightstands, because it tucks into it, the nightstands come forward. It's a very practical kind of space, and it's hard to get out of bed in the morning. Chest was made by Bilecki Brothers in New York, custom for us. Wonderful old world style, Parson style. The carpet was made by Guinevere in London. Nice hand-woven killam. We selected the colors, leontine linens on the bed. Just favorite spot of ours, and the beautiful ocean right at our feet every morning. So we continued the blue and white up through the hallway with the carpet and into the bedroom. But in the bedroom we added the red. I'm always been a red fan, and I had it basically started because I had a pair of antique red glass lamps, and I wanted them to fit within the blue and white scheme, so that's where I pulled from. I'm also a big American flag person. I love old American flags, actually any flag. I have my father's flag from his World War II flag right next to my bed. And great campaign desk, very useful to work at. Use it as a nightstand. Another bobbin piece. This one, a really cool chair from David Duncan in New York. And the collection of boats and ships continues around the room. The best part of the room for me is our little balcony overlooking the water. I can get up at night and go out and look at the stars. It's great when I get up in the morning. I just open the door and feel the breeze coming through. I think my favorite part of this house, of this home for us, I think our bedroom is probably my favorite spot in the house because of its views and openness. I'm a person that likes to sleep with blackout curtains and in the dark, and I've never drawn the curtains here or lowered the shades. It's just wonderful to go to bed at night and have be able to see the stars and wake up in the morning with the sunlight. It's perfect.
I like the bedroom too. We do spend a lot of time up there. As you'll see, it's a very large room that also functions as a quasi-office as well.
Yeah.
But I think this particular space is my favorite. We travel a lot for work, and we're alone and together quite a bit. And this is definitely communal space. So when we're actually here, we do entertain quite a bit, whether it's summertime or wintertime. In wintertime, There's an event here called Christmas Stroll. We'll invite friends in, we'll have dinner at the dining table right over this way, and then we'll gather around here, and in honor of my sister, we do this reading of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And it started out after she passed away. It started as something very sort of somber, and it's become very theatrical. And we have a bunch of friends who are really characters and frustrated actors, and everybody it all plays out right here in front of the fireplace.
We wear hats and, all the goofy stuff that everyone wears at Christmas Stroll, lights around our necks, and, it's fun.
This room has a lot of fun memories. On Nantucket, one of the advantages of a twin guest room is that it provides flexible sleeping arrangements for the many house guests you're sure to have. Now I'd like to show you our outdoor patio. So we were just in the hydrangea guest room, which I mentioned is one of 2 guest rooms on the lower level. One of the problems with lower level bedrooms is people always feel like they're sleeping in the cellar, and you get a little pushback about somebody not wanting this or that room. When we designed this house, this space was not here, so the initial thought was we would put a window in each bedroom, which meant we would either have a window well or we would dig out a bit and just create a little bit of space between the house and an outside retaining wall. Well, it turned out that the cost to bump that retaining wall out 6 feet wasn't much more than if we bumped it out there for what you see right now. What that did was it provided us an opportunity to put French doors out of both bedrooms, and it opens onto this really spacious little patio that guests can use for working, making phone calls, just relaxing. We decided to create the illusion of more space by employing mirror. We did 2 mirrored panels that are placed directly opposite the French doors, and then as a decorative element, we incorporated this trellis work, and then to create a little bit of a green space, we put in this climbing hydrangea climbing up the walls. And this year we have geraniums here. One of the little pitfalls we had was with the mirror, when the sun is at a certain angle, it reflects directly on the plant. And originally there had been ivy there, and the ivy burned. So we had a photo shoot here at some point, and we just had some geraniums, so we just stuck them into the ground, and success. So I think we'll be seeing geraniums here for years to come. The space is currently set up into 2 distinct areas. This end has a sofa with a coffee table, and this end down here has a small dining table. The inside living room has a little bar attached to it, which we've set up with a little refrigerator and a coffee machine. So guests who are staying on the lower level can get their cup of coffee in the morning, just come out here, enjoy the morning, catch up on emails and so forth. So this spiral staircase not only provides access in the event of an emergency, but it also provides a very beautiful way to access the garden. So when planting this garden, we had to be very aware of the fact that we are in a more remote part of the island where there are more deer and rabbits. Those animals can destroy your garden very quickly. And consequently, despite the fact that we've planted as many deer-resistant species as possible, we do find that we have deer fencing up for about 3/4 of the year. And while you don't always want to look at deer fence, the value in that is during the summer months, we do have some beautiful hydrangeas blooming and some other flowering plants that we might not otherwise be able to have because they would have been eaten. So now I'd like to take you around to the front of the house. As we approach the front of the house, you'll notice that the garden design becomes a bit more formal. Despite the fact that we are in a casual area, there is a degree of formality to our lifestyle. So we put in a proper entry gate, and then we put a bluestone patio in, which is a great place for cocktails. In the summertime, we're known for putting a tent in this area of the yard, and there's typically a cocktail party right on the bluestone patio. A perfect place to spend a summer evening. So let me take you to the bluestone patio and show you one of the water features that we have. Before we get though, I will point out that we've always been enamored with the rose-covered cottages in Sconset, and despite the fact that we do have deer here, the deer fencing has allowed us to at least attempt to have some roses growing over the house. So the bluestone patio area that we wanted, as you can see, is rather large, and if it was unbroken, it would start to look like a landing strip. So we decided to incorporate a water feature using an old bowl that Gary had bought in Paris about 30 years ago. Frankly, for 25 of those 30 years, it sat in a storage bin. So it was a nice opportunity to use that. The water flows into a sort of a recycling pit, and the plantings around it have been a little problematic. the wind, for as much as it looks like the water flow is rather gentle, the wind tends to blow the water in this direction. So the choice of lavender as a surround has been sort of a difficult one. On windy days such as today, you'll find that the wind will blow the water often in this direction and the lavender will get wet. We've replaced the lavender in this area several times already, which some people may say is foolish, but we do like lavender. Earlier I showed you our friends and family entrance from the interior of the home, but I thought it would be nice to share with you what our friends actually see when they come to our door. Most of the plants that you can see are deer-resistant species, as I mentioned. We have catmint, lots of catmint. We do manage to have some hydrangeas here, different species, which is nice as they bloom at different times. And then circling the screen porch, we have a beautiful stand of Russian sage.
For me, and it's funny, I was thinking about this yesterday, and when I was a little kid, I used to always say, would use the word house, and my mother would always correct me and say, no, it's a home. That we have. And I think about that a lot, and this house is a collection of things that we've both had for many years and bought together, and it's where we have friends, family is always here, our parents have been here with us. We have dinner parties on a regular basis, so we're always ready to have a barbecue and invite people in at any given second. So that to me is home, and we also didn't want the house to be a museum. I mean, we're major collectors. I'm definitely, I'm not a minimalist, and Bill maybe more so than me, but definitely not me. And it's all our collection of things, and that's important, but it's not a museum. It's definitely not a museum.
We've bought and sold a lot of properties over the time we've been together, and we're constantly on the road, so I don't think my feeling of home is necessarily tied to a particular structure. I think no matter where you are, you can create that feeling. It's pulling in the people that you love, the people that you have good friends. It's very easy to pull a meal together somewhere and create that sort of feeling. It's the right lighting, the right music, which very easy to do with phones and technology these days. So I think it's more who you're with, the environment you create wherever you are, and I think we've become pretty good at that. I think.
Yeah, we're pretty
Adaptable,
and we move around pretty easily. We also tend to like having a lot of the same things in our homes, so that we know what we have, we know it will work.
Well, it's very familiar.
It's very familiar, and it all works really well, and it's pretty easy as long as you have place settings of China for 24 multiple sets.
Well, that works for me.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.